I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Montclair City Council meeting. We've got a lot of items on the agenda, so we'll get through as fast as we can. We'll start off with the invocation of the Pledge of Allegiance, and Andrea could please announce those individuals.
And will be given by Pastor Josh Matlock of Bethany Baptist Church. And then the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Rue.
Great, please stand.
Join me in prayer. Father in heaven, your word says that you have told us what is good and what you require of us to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God. So Lord, we pray that tonight that we would do such a thing. Lord, when I see a room that is full of so many concerned citizens, I know there are a lot of needs and a lot of passions and a lot of desires. And so Lord, I pray that everyone would be heard and that decisions would be weighed with wisdom and prudence and kindness and compassion as well as justice, God. And so, Lord, we pray for tonight, pray for the council members that as they hear and listen and work to guide the city, we pray that you would give them wisdom and love and compassion. Pray that you would bless them. Pray for all of our administrators in the city too, and all that they do to keep us functioning and running well. We thank you for them. We pray your blessing upon them. Pray for all of our first responders that you keep them safe and well. We thank you for their sacrifice and service to this community. Lord, watch over us, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And please have a roll call.
Councilmember Mendez. Councilmember Lopez.
I'm here.
Councilmember Rue. Mayor Pro Tem Martinez. Here. And Mayor Dutray.
I'm here. Okay, next we have a presentation. It does say none, but we have 4 presentations this evening. So if you can handle, but the first one is a sad news. I want to ask Police Chief Jason Reedy, please come to the mic to the podium. On May 6, 2026, retired Lieutenant Jim Michael passed. He was a longtime member of the Montclair Police Department. Obviously, he finished his career in the Montclair Police Department, I believe, last December. And then his funeral services will be this Thursday, June 4th, at 11 a.m. at Rock Hill Church. And Chief Reed, you'd like to say some stuff about Lieutenant Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, Jim Michael did leave us early. He left his career early here to enjoy his retirement. He left before he put his full amount of time in, but he still conducted 28 years of honorable service here at Montclair PD. And only a couple months into his retirement, he died suddenly while up in the Sierras fishing. So we will be honoring him at his funeral Thursday, and the information is been posted. And if anyone has any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And again, his services will be this coming Thursday at Rock Hill Church, beginning at 11 a.m. in Rancho Cucamonga. And we will adjourn this meeting in memory of Lieutenant Jim Michael. He was a great guy. Thank you. So, second presentation, I want to start with our legislative folks. So we'll start with Roxanne for Assemblyman Michelle Rodriguez's office.
Good evening, all. My name is Roxana Gracia, and I'm here representing Assembly Member Michelle Rodriguez. I'm here to invite all those present, City Council, the Mayor, City staff, to join us for the second annual Summer Barbecue. It is a community celebration that you won't want to miss. It is a cowboy-themed event, and it is going to be hosted at our district office right behind. There's a little park there. We closed the streets down. We have resources available. It's an opportunity for you to come out, meet your elected official, and also see some resources that will be there. Our staff will be there, and we'll be there offering our services, which, for those that don't know, we offer case management services for state department issues. That includes EDD, DMV, any state department. If you have an issue, you can come to us, and we can assist you as you maneuver through the state department process. There will be free food, and there's going to be music, so please consider joining us, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Roxanne. Okay, next one is Ruby Long, ready to go? We have Ruby on the line?
Yes. let
Okay,
me
Ruby
go
Long
ahead
from
and-
Supervisor Heigman's office.
Let me go ahead and unmute her. Okay, there we go.
Ruby, you
Oh,
there?
there we go. Hi, good evening.
Go ahead, Ruby.
Good evening. Once again, Ruby Long with County Supervisor Kurt Hagman's office. Just want to make a quick announcement that this Saturday, June 6th, we will be hosting our free shredding event, and it's for our San Bernardino County residents. It's going to be held in the city of Chino, so it'll be at the Chino City Hall, and that is once again this Saturday from 9 to 12, a free event, and it's 3 standard boxes per car.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last presentation is Katie Parker. Where's Katie? Katie, she's a governing board member of the Chino Basin Conservation Water District. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you. So my name's Katie Parker. I'm the vice president of the board at the Chino Basin Water Conservation District. And I am coming tonight to you to invite you to, we have two things tonight. We have our Chino Groundwater Basin and Sustainability Tour. That is Thursday, June 25th. It's from 8 to 12. We feed you. When you come back, you get cookies and you get to see how we recharge our biggest source of water. Our second one, and this is brand new, this is Community Water Academy 101. This would be a 3-day thing. This is for community members, anyone, city council, staff, anyone that's interested in learning how water is captured, stored, and how it gets to your tap, where our water comes from, how water reaches communities in the Chino Basin and where it goes when it leaves our home, and then new state rules for water conservation and how that affects you. Thank you so much, and you can ignore my speaker card. I didn't know you were gonna call me up. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to the events. Thank you, Katie. Okay, we're done with presentations. We'll now go on to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the city council and any items not on the agenda. If you wish to address the city council on either the consent calendar, we'll do it under public comment. If you wish to address the city council regarding the 2 public hearing items, there are 2 public hearing items. Oops, excuse me, as I go through this. What are my public hearing items? Here are the 2 public hearing items, so we'll address those at that time. If you wish to address the city council regarding item, let me see, 11A, which is regarding the Brown Act, changes, I'm sorry, item 10A, which is a business item regarding the changes to the Brown Act, we'll address it at that time. If you wish to discuss with the city council regarding item 11A, which is regarding immigration enforcement activities, we'll address it at that time. And if you wish to address the city council on either the closed session items, we can address it at this time under public comment. If you address the city council on something that's not on the agenda, we cannot respond per the Brown Act. If you have any questions, we'll try to answer your questions. If you're addressing any questions, something that's on the agenda, those items are discussable by the city council. We typically have 5 minutes. How many speakers do we have today?
For general public comment, I have 8 speakers. For the items or the item that's later in the meeting, I want to say like 15-ish.
Yeah, 15, okay. So because we have a busy agenda and a number of speakers, if the city council is okay with it, we'll bring it down to 3 minutes.
I object.
We've normally done that. 3 minutes, everybody's good with 3 minutes?
Yes,
One
sir.
objection?
I object. If
Okay,
they
it's
have
4 to
5
1 then.
minutes of things to say, I'd like to hear them.
Okay, so then we will start with public comment. And we have 8 items, we have 8 speakers on public comment, and then go ahead, Andrea.
All right, our first speaker is Teresa Preciado. After that is Carlos Solano.
Welcome.
Hello, good morning. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Teresa Preciado. I am one of the business agents for the members of Teamsters Local 1932 who are employees with the city. Tonight, I'm coming before you to ask you to look at the faces that stand behind me. These are men and women who provide the essential services that keep this city running every day. They are not here to complain. They are here because they care deeply about the work that they do and the community that they serve. These employees are the face of the city of Montclair. While you were elected to represent this city, these workers represent it every day through their dedication, their professionalism, and the services that they provide to the public. With your position comes the responsibility to support your workforce that helps in turn make the city what it is today. I challenge you to view these employees not as an expense, but an investment. When workers are treated as valued investments and provided with a living wage, they stay. When they're provided affordable health care, they stay. When they're provided retirement pathways that they can rely on when they retire, they stay. They build their careers here and they stay. They gain experience and they continue providing the high quality services that these residents depend on. A strong city is built on a strong workforce. Taking care of the people who serve this community is not only the right thing to do, but it is an investment in the future of Montclair. So I urge you to come back to the bargaining table, prepared to negotiate in good faith and make meaningful investments in the employees who keep this city running. Show your workforce that they are valued, that they're respected, and that they are worth investing in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Next is Carlos Solano, followed by Alice Garcia.
Good evening.
Thank you, sir.
The reason why I'm here is the first time after 30 years living in Montclair. Never have any issues with no one. Never had any problem with no one, except March 9, 2 police officers came to my house, threatened me to arrest me, impound my car for nothing. I didn't do anything wrong. Even the police officer grabbed his gun, and I told him to shoot me right up there. My gate was locked. He couldn't come through, but they were very rude to myself. Since that day, I've been stressed out. I've been scared, and my days are going so bad. Now, on the same officer who came with Mr. Morones, who's the one who did the problem, I was involved in an accident right here on Central and Benito. The same officer who came to my house with Mr. Morones assisted in that accident. He gave me guilty when the lady ran a red light on my house just because he got something against myself. I wish I can speak to the police chief, because I tried to go as many ways I can, and they always denied trying to talk to him. So that is my issue today, and I hope he can.
Okay.
I can talk to him today.
I believe Police Chief or City Manager Starr, how would you like to handle this matters?
Well, I do believe that it's an opportunity now for the chief of police to meet him in the hallway and have a conversation with
Okay.
him.
Thank you. The
Thank
chief
you.
will be meeting
Thank
with
you.
you to discuss your situation. Thank you.
The next speaker is Alice Garcia, followed by Philip Mendez.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Months ago, I stood here and promised this city a recall. I did so because this community deserved real accountability after a court of law found Councilmember Ben Lopez liable for his actions. I kept my promise. I stood up a formal committee, filed the state paperwork, and did the heavy lifting. But what I have learned over the last few months is a hard truth. While an entire city is outraged behind closed doors, The immense burden of fixing a broken system cannot be carried solely on the backs of a few residents. A recall requires an active volunteer army, and while the public anger is real, the daily boots on the ground were not there. Therefore, we are bringing the active petition phase to a close. Ben, do not mistake this end of this petition for a victory, a validation of your actions, or a clean slate. A court of law has already judged you. We have put the political machinery in place, and we have raised the community's awareness, and the voters now know exactly who you are, and you aren't getting rid of me that easily. I want to be entirely clear about why I stepped up. I did this to raise awareness about sexual harassment, not only for Edmund and Michael, but for any other victims out there who do not have a voice. We have to be loud in situations like this. We cannot let people who think they have the power do these things to us and simply walk away. Because this is not just about what happened years ago. This is about a continuous, ongoing risk to the future of this city and its employees. I am hearing directly from residents that the very patterns of behavior described in those court documents, the anonymous solicitations and the use of digital aliases have not stopped. That man, Ben Lopez, is active on Sniffies. And for those of you who don't know, it's a map-based real-time platform designed for spontaneous, anonymous sexual encounters for gay, bisexual, and bi-curious men. For a public official, this is not just a private matter. It represents an active security, ethical, and legal liability to the city infrastructure you are trusted to lead. A man who refuses to admit his actions, who blames hackers without a shred of proof, and who whispers nope to calls for basic accountability is a man who is destined to repeat his mistakes. A man who acts with such weakness because he refuses to face the truth of his own conduct does not deserve to sit in that seat. While canvassing this community, I heard directly from city employees who indicated they were terrified and felt they weren't even allowed to sign the petition. I heard from council members who claimed they were legally bound from signing. What kind of system are we running in Montclair where people are too intimidated to stand for basic safety and ethics? I believe in God, and I know that through prayer, the truth will always manifest itself. Your father, Ben, your father stood here and said he was putting it all in God's hands, and then you were found liable in a court of law. God knows your heart, and God knows your true intentions. I believe it will all come back to you sooner or later, and God help you when it does. And yet I hear,
Thank you.
think about it, Montclair.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Philip Mendez, followed by Alex Murphy.
Yeah, you'll be after this gentleman here. You'll speak after him. He does. Go ahead. I'm sorry?
We have two Alex Murphys here.
We have another Alex Merck. Who's the other one? You're okay. You'll speak right after.
I just wanted to make sure his name's Alex.
Okay.
We have two people.
You're after him.
But, okay, I'm actually
Okay.
partially deaf, and I just,
All right.
I thought his name was the same.
Go ahead.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Philip Mendez. I'm the street lead for Public Works. I'm here today to implore you to reconsider the offer presented to employees represented by Teamsters 1932. As I am part of the negotiation team, I do not want to get into any specific details, but I want to make the constituents aware that the negotiations have been a complete waste of time and city resources. No actual negotiations have taken place. Instead, the city's lawyer has stalled and wasted our time with the same offer from day one, and no actual bargaining has occurred. I urge you to reconsider the offer that is being presented to Teamsters. The constituents have come to expect the highest level of service from us, and the current offer on the table will not only result in loss of employees that allow us to provide these services, but simply put, it jeopardizes the entire program, as the city's only solution seems to be to contract out more and more services. For example, the Parks Department has been contracted out for over a year now, and Public Works is expected to pick up the slack and do everything that the contractors do not do. Ultimately, it boils down to money. I believe We're double paying for services since Public Works must still provide those services for the parks and other events that the contractors doesn't do. Allegedly, we don't have a parks department because we can't retain people. And we can't keep people because the pay is not competitive for similar sized cities. In order to keep the level of service that Montclair constituents have come to expect, I once again implore you to insist on honest, open dialogue at the negotiation table. Montclair is not a Fortune 500 company whose focus is on retaining profits. And while I fully understand the need to have a surplus to serve the community properly, what is the point of a surplus of funds if you don't use them that saved money during the times of need? The Montclair constituents deserve to have a fully functioning dispatch, public works, fire department, police department. And I'm here to tell you that the rainy days you've been saving for are here. Those funds that have been squirreled away are needed now to stop the bleeding. We do not ask to empty the coffers, only to provide us a fighting chance to keep vital employees that keep the city of Montclair being a great place to live and work. We are asking for a very small piece of what the general fund actually has, not projections of doom and gloom, not what ifs, cold hard numbers. Every bargaining unit has now come to you asking the same thing, to help keep employees here. Some employees have even mentioned they can't afford diapers. Every negotiation has been the same way. Because of the what ifs, the city tries to give our unit the lowest offer they can. But I believe we're now at a crossroads, and the decision will impact the city for years to come. Please help us keep the city of Montclair an amazing place to live and work, and urge participation in fair negotiations. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Alex Murphy, followed by Alex Perez.
That's what it was, Alex Murphy, Alex Perez.
Hi, my name's Alexandra Murphy. I've been living here for 27 years now, and I want to thank you for serving us, and I want to thank you for the Teamsters. I didn't know who they were until today. Now, I do want to speak for them. I don't know them from Adam, but I know sometimes our city suffers, right? There are so many programs that we don't know we have that we didn't know. You remember Pomona, how they suffered with the crime? And then they had the Army come in and take over, and they set up places. Well, there's programs that they can buy houses and maybe get grants to help them with their jobs because they do such a great job. Now, if they're suffering, maybe we can find a program to give them some incentive. If we can't give them the pay they want, maybe give them a voucher for buying a house in the city of Montclair. What do you think? See, when I bought a house 30 years ago, you had that $30,000 or $15,000, but you wouldn't give it to me because I didn't live in the city of Montclair, and I lost out on $15,000. Now, I had to live in it for 15 years, and I couldn't lease it or rent it for 15 years, and that money was mine.
Ma'am,
but I didn't get it.
City Council, please? You have to address
No,
the city
I'm
council.
sorry, I'm deaf, so
Okay.
I want everybody to hear
Understand.
me. I am so deaf.
Understand.
So the reason why I'm here today is because our roads are beautiful and these new places being built. Now, when you come off that exit off of Monte Vista coming from LA, there's no arrow to go left, and it stops the traffic. We don't take a left because we don't know if we're gonna get in an accident. Who has the right of way? Put an arrow up there. Now, when you're coming this way from Monte Vista and you wanna get on the freeway, there's two roads to get on that freeway. That first lane cuts all the way over to the right and causes accidents. So maybe we could fix that. That first lane that goes on the freeway is cutting all the way over. Am I wrong?
Right.
Let's fix that, because it's gonna cause an accident. Are we gonna wait for an accident? So let's take those two arrows and say freeway for sure, and then you can go left or go right on that one street. I don't know what that street is. So I hope we can fix that. I know I only got 40 minutes, but let's fix those two streets that go on the freeway, because I'm sick and tired of getting cut off. So I hope what I said today helps everybody.
Yeah,
And
I'll have our Public
discussion.
Works Director, I'm sorry, you have 20, go ahead.
No, that's all right. I just wanted to speak.
I'll have our Public Works Director, Rosemary, speak to you about it,
Yeah.
if you like to, probably.
I'm not the only one getting cut off.
So Rosemary, our Public Works Director, will talk to
So
you about it.
everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay, our Our next speaker is Alex Perez, followed by Laura Rico.
Hi.
How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Just fine.
All right, so good evening, council members and city manager. Residents pay for essential city services and expect those services to be staffed by qualified employees who are supported and retained. That includes public works, police support staff such as dispatch and records, human services, and code enforcement. These employees keep the city running every day. I ask the city to return to fair negotiations and present a reasonable offer before the situation leads to further employee turnover and impacts on city services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Laura Rico, and I don't know if this person is here, but Brianna Nunez, if she is here, she requested to speak.
Okay, and after Brianna, who is it, Andrea?
Brianna Nunez.
She's the last one?
Yes.
Of the first, okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hello and good evening. My name is Laura Rico, and the comments I'm making tonight are my own and do not represent the Montclair Police Department. I've been a senior police dispatcher for 13 years, nearly 4 of those years with the city of Montclair. Some of you may remember when I, along with other members of the Teamsters unit, spoke before this council 2 years ago. At that time, I spoke because I felt the city didn't care about its employees. And today I stand before you not disappointed, but angry because nothing's changed. To date, the Teamsters General Unit, the Montclair Police Officers Association, and the Montclair Professional Firefighters have all come before this council asking to be compensated fairly and appropriately. We're not here because we want conflict. We're here because we care deeply about the employees who serve this city and the residents who depend on us, on all of us every day. This issue is not isolated to one department. The Teamsters General Unit includes dispatchers, records personnel, code enforcement officers, public works employees, and city hall staff. While our responsibilities may differ, the problem is the same across every division. Employees are underpaid, overworked, and leaving for agencies and cities that offer better compensation and benefits. Tonight, I'm speaking from the perspective of dispatch because that's the role I know personally, but the staffing and retention crisis extends far beyond my department. The reality is that employees are preparing to leave, and the city is fully aware of it. The Police Officers Association has mentioned it, the fire department hasn't mentioned it, and I'm here to tell you that at least half of the dispatchers currently employed by the police department are either actively in backgrounds with other agencies offering better pay or are seriously exploring opportunities elsewhere, to include myself. If half of our dispatch staff leaves, most shifts will be staffed by a single dispatcher responsible for handling the entire city alone. Working alone in dispatch means there are times we cannot step away from the radio or phones long enough to take a restroom break or even eat a meal for hours. While handling emergency calls, monitoring officer safety, and coordinating responses for an entire city alone, basic human needs become secondary. That's not sustainable, and it's not the level of staffing the residents of Montclair should expect. I wonder if the public and even this council truly understands what working alone in dispatch means. It means that if officers are involved in a vehicle pursuit, major incident, or a high-risk emergency and a 911 call comes in at that same time, there may be no one available to answer that call. That means if a parent calls because their baby's choking or not breathing, that call may go unanswered. If someone calls trapped inside a vehicle after a major car accident, that call may go unanswered. And that's not an exaggeration, this happens. And it's the reality of operating critically understaffed. When the city of Montclair refuses to offer competitive wages and benefits, it doesn't just impact employees, it impacts public safety and puts every single resident of Montclair at risk. I'm very close to being done. I chose this profession knowing it would be stressful, demanding, and at times overwhelming. I knew what I signed up for, and every dispatcher did. We accepted the responsibility that comes with being the voice people hear on the worst day of their lives. But the residents of Montclair...
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, if Brianna Nunez is here, otherwise that's all of our comments.
I have Brandon Newton? Okay. And I just want to say to all the Montclair employees, we, on behalf of the City Council, we do appreciate all the hard work you guys do for the citizens of Montclair. Thank you. we will move on. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we will now move on to public hearing items. And we will start with the first item, which is the first reading to consider ordinance number 26-1017. And this is regarding the additional development standards. Obviously, this is a continuation from the April 2026 meeting when this council adopted a urgency ordinance. And I believe we're just redoing it all over again as a first reading and second reading to ensure compliance. I believe City Manager Starr or Director Fuentes, are you there?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Detroit, City Council members. Just to reiterate Mayor Detroit's comments, this is the ordinance that's being presented right now is just a follow-up ordinance. The City Council adopted urgency ordinance 26-1017, adopting the housing facilitation ordinance in order to comply with some zoning requirements that the Housing and Community Development Department of the state of California required us to have in order to have our housing element adopted. We took that as an urgency ordinance on April 20th, 2026. We received a letter from the HCD on May 2nd, 2026, letting us know that the city did receive, or HCD did find that the city's housing element was in substantial compliance with the state housing law as part of the adoption of the urgency ordinance. The ordinance now is presented as a regular ordinance with a first and second reading and will become adopted 30 days after. If staff would like, I can provide a further updated presentation, but the presentation just reiterates what was priorly presented at the April 20th City Council meeting.
Okay, first of all, from the council, do you want a presentation? This will be a repeat presentation, or you just have questions? Let's do this. Let's open up the public hearing first. See any members of the public wish to address the city council on this item. Do we have any members of the public, Andrea?
I received no request to speak on this
Nobody
item.
wants to talk about this item? We'll close the public hearing. I'll bring it back to the city council. Councilmember Lopez.
Question, I believe it was Mr. Diaz that answered this at that meeting on April 20th. There was a discussion, correct me if I'm wrong, a resident or property owner came forward regarding his property. There was a discussion about later on down the road, he may be forced to convert it to or be in compliance with another provision. This is that same issue, correct?
Yes, it's the same ordinance we were under consideration
Okay.
then.
All right. Then I had abstained on that because I just do not, I'm uncomfortable with us stipulating to property owners in the city that somewhere down the road, they have to convert and change their property to another form of whatever it might be to be in compliance. And the business owner that was before us had expressed some financial hardships or difficulty in perhaps making that switch eventually. And the existing use of their land was doable for them. Who are we to tell them to change it down the road? That's why I abstained last time, and I intend to lay off this time.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may just add, just so you know, that particular property owner has come forward to the city numerous times trying to put forward plans in relation to that property, and that property owner consistently failed to move forward on all of those submissions. And this particular change does not necessarily require that he do anything with his property. It only stipulates that if he does want to do something, then he would have to look at housing. And he would actually do far better in developing that site for housing than he would have with any of the projects that he had submitted. So this is only an economic advantage to him, not a disadvantage. Mr. Starr, I appreciate the answer, but ultimately that decision is left to the property owner, not us.
Okay, we'll move on. Any more questions from council? I don't see anything. If not, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance and then have a second reading on July 6th? Can I get it, or you want to make that, Bill?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that.
Second?
Second by Council Mayor Pro Tem Martinez, to be read by number title only. And let's do electronic vote. Okay, that's adopted 401.
Okay.
And this be read by number title only.
Yes, ordinance number 26-1017, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Montclair, adding Chapter 11.79 to the Montclair Municipal Code relating to additional development standards to facilitate ministerial approvals for development of multifamily housing citywide.
Great, thank you very much. We'll go on to the next public hearing item, which is to consider the City of Montclair's report on vacancies. And we'll open the public hearing as well. And I'll hand this over to staff. Who on staff will do the presentation? Or who wants to lead off on this? Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Tonight, staff is presenting the city's annual report of vacancies in compliance with AB 2561. This report provides an overview of the city's current full-time vacancies, recruitment activity, retention efforts, and the opportunity for recognized bargaining units to present information regarding vacancies within their represented units. AB 2561 became effective on January 1st, 2025, and added Government Code Section 3502.3 to the Mayor's Milius-Brown Act. The law requires public agencies to annually present information regarding job vacancies, recruitment, retention efforts to the agency's governing body. AB 2561 was adopted in response to concerns about public sector staffing vacancies. High vacancy levels can impact public service delivery, employee workload, recruitment and retention, and overall organizational stability. The purpose of this report is to provide transparency regarding current vacancy levels and the city's ongoing efforts to address recruitment and retention challenges. The city is required to present vacancy, recruitment, and retention information before formal budget adoption. The law also provides recognized bargaining units an opportunity to present during the public hearing. If a bargaining unit vacancy rate is at or above 20%, additional information must be provided upon request from the recognized employee organization. The purpose of this public hearing is to increase transparency regarding staffing vacancies and present the city's recruitment and retention efforts and provide an avenue to discuss challenges related to maintaining a stable workforce. This process also supports ongoing workforce planning and helps identify areas where recruitment and retention efforts may need continued attention. For our recognized bargaining units, the city has 4 recognized bargaining units. We have Montclair City Confidential Employees Association. We have Teamsters Local 1932 representing the General Employees Unit. We have Montclair Police Officers Association and Montclair Firefighters Association. And each recognized bargaining unit was provided notice for this public hearing and the opportunity to present. For the fiscal year 25-26, the city has 201 authorized full-time positions. Of these positions, 180 are currently filled and 21 positions are currently vacant, resulting in an overall vacancy rate of 10%. This reflects an improvement from the prior fiscal year of overall vacancy rate of 11%. MFFA is the only bargaining unit that meets or exceeds the 20% vacancy threshold. This slide summarized vacancy data by employee group. As you can see, the executive management has 1 vacancy out of 9 authorized positions. The management has 2 vacancies out of 20. MCCEA has 2 vacancies out of 33. Teamsters have 5 vacancies out of 64. MPOA have 6 vacancies out of 53. And MFFA has 5 vacancies out of 22. For MFFA, this results in a vacancy of 23%. And as I mentioned, citywide total vacancy is 10%. For some of the details for the MFFA vacancies, they are fire captains. We have 6 authorized positions with 5 active and 1 vacant. We have 6 engineers authorized positions with 3 active and 3 vacant. we have 10 authorized firefighter paramedic positions with 9 active and 1 vacant, for a total of 22 authorized, 17 active, and 5 vacant. For the details about the continuous recruitments, they are as follows. So the city is actively recruiting for fire engineer and firefighter paramedic positions. The fire engineer recruitment is continuous with 5 applicants and 2 candidates currently in background. And the next exam schedule is for June 29 and June 30th. Firefighter paramedic recruitment is also continuous with 15 applications, 3 candidates currently in the background, and the last exam was held on May 27th. Fire department recruitments typically take approximately 4 months. That process includes approval of the posting, the recruitment period, testing and creation of an eligibility list, medical clearance and background investigations, and candidate notice period. Current recruitment challenges include limited numbers of applicants meeting minimum qualifications, candidate withdrawals and non-responses, and candidates accepting offers from other agencies. The city continues to evaluate opportunities to improve recruitment, compensation, and working conditions through the appropriate administrative, budgetary, and labor relations processes. This includes continuing to meet and confer with MFFA regarding salary, benefits, and working conditions, maintaining continuous recruitments for hard-to-fill fire classifications, and expanding outreach and advertising, reviewing recruitment practices to improve efficiency, and supporting promotional development and internal pipeline opportunities where operationally feasible. Here is a list of our current continuous full-time recruitments. These are the positions that often experience attrition and are difficult to fill. These include entry police officer, lateral police officer, entry firefighter paramedic, lateral firefighter paramedic, entry police dispatcher, lateral police dispatcher, and fire engineer. Continuous recruitments allow the city to maintain an applicant pool and move candidates through the process as staffing needs arise. For our full-time recruitment activity, since July 1st, 2025, the city has filled 21 full-time vacancies, conducting 25 recruitments, and reviewed 2,796 applications. While the number of applications demonstrates continued interest in city employment opportunities, a high application volume does not always translate into a large qualified applicant pool. Common challenges include limited qualified applicants, competing offers and counter offers, and relocation issues. During fiscal year 2025-26, employees separate from the city for a variety of reasons. These include accepting positions with other local government agencies, transitioning to private sector employment, resigning without known employment, returning to school, health-related reasons, termination, and retirement. These categories help the city better understand workforce movement and identify areas for continued recruitment and retention focus. The city continues to focus on employee retention through several ongoing efforts. This include compensation and benefit comparisons with survey cities, a comprehensive benefits package, employee training and development, educational grants, university tuition discount partnerships, enhanced short and long-term disability benefits compared to the state disability program, and CalPERS retirement benefits. Also supports retention through competitive employer paid benefits, health, vision, and dental and life insurance, deferred compensation contributions, years of service awards and longevity incentives, and paid leave benefits. These efforts are intended to support employee stability, engagement, and long-term service with the city. The city continues to improve recruitment and onboarding practices. This includes continued use and enhancement of digital recruitment and onboarding systems, improve job posting quality, expand advertising and outreach for hard-to-fill positions, review of recruitment practices to improve efficiency, exit interviews to identify potential areas for improvement, and continued evaluation of onboarding workflows and the candidate experience. This presentation and public hearing meet the city's AB 2561 obligation. The city's overall vacancy rate improved from 11% last fiscal year to 10% this fiscal year. And as mentioned, MFFA meets or exceeds the 20% vacancy threshold, while the remaining bargaining units are well below the threshold. The city will continue monitoring staff trends and recruitment efforts, and bargaining group presentations will follow, if any. Thank you.
All right. Okay, do we have any speakers tonight?
I think everyone who was going to speak on this item already spoke.
Already spoke on the public comment? Okay. Then I will close this public hearing. Any questions, comments from council members? Is there an action required? Is there an action or just receive and file? Okay, there's no action on this item then. We'll go on to the
Oh,
consent.
sorry, there is a action to receive and file.
There is a motion required, okay. Okay, I'll just move to consider receiving and filing the City of Montclair's report of vacancies for 25-26 fiscal year.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion.
Second by Councilmember Rue. We'll vote electronically. Stopped at 5-0. Consent calendar items. We'll start with my left. Any members of my left wish to remove a consent calendar item? Nobody? How about my right? No? Nobody?
Yes, I'm sorry, I can't find it though.
Sorry.
One related to the immigration enforcement. Never mind. then.
Consent calendar. Yeah, we'll talk about that. That'll be a separate item for discussion. Yes, Councilman Lopez.
Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you.
I will second.
Second by Councilmember Rue, and we'll go ahead and have electronic vote. All right, there's a yes vote. 5-0. Okay, where are we now? We are past, we'll go down to the next business item, which is one item there, and this is regarding adoption resolution number 26-3520 regarding the new Brown Act requirements. So Andrea, is that you?
Yes, so I have a presentation here. Okay, so good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Tonight, I'm providing a presentation about Senate Bill 707, which provides updates to the Brown Act. And also, we are requesting that you consider adoption of resolution number 26-3520, which will adopt policies for SB 707 compliance. So first, let me move my microphone here so I can see my screen. Okay. So for SB 707, there are several components of the bill. It does expand the options for legislative body members to have alternative rules and allowances for remote participation. As you know, that normally you have to post the agenda at the location. And this would provide for alternative remote teleconferencing rules for council members. Additionally, it provides more allowances for members of the public, including remote attendance and public comments at city council meetings. In addition, it also provides non-English speakers with more support, including translated city council agendas and language accommodations at public meetings that are in line with ADA laws. So the proposed resolution will adopt policies for service disruptions preventing two-way remote participation at council meetings, which is a requirement for remote participation. Disruptions by remote participants at council meetings, which is just another way to address disruptions by participants if they are not physically within the council chambers. In addition, it would adopt a policy for ADA and language assistance so that it aligns our ADA policy with the language assistance that we are to now provide under that policy. For legislative body members, if any of the legislative body members are participating remotely, the Classic Brown Act still would apply, so there still will need to be a quorum of members present at the meeting to hold the meeting, and that would be in person. And there must be a two-way method for listening and speaking during the meeting for those who are participating remotely. Those who are participating remotely must disclose the presence of anyone under or 18 or older at the remote location, and also must disclose if they have a relationship to that legislative body member. And all votes must be taken by roll call, which is a voice vote for every item on that meeting's agenda. So the three remote options for legislative bodies members now is, in addition to the traditional Brown Act, we also now have the Just Cause provision, which was an amendment by SB 707, and also disability, which is a new provision of SB 707. So under traditional, which is still in effect, you don't need a particular reason to participate remotely. Remote location must be stated on the agenda. The agenda must be posted at the remote site at the same time that the regular meeting agenda is posted, normally 72 hours before the meeting. And the public can attend and participate in person from the remote site with the remote council member who is participating remotely, or legislative body member. There can be audio only or both video and audio used. So you can call via telephone, or you can use a platform like Zoom to have your video on. And there's no limit to the number of times per year that you can teleconference into a meeting under the normal traditional Brown Act rules. Under the Just Cause Amendment, the remote site does not have to be disclosed on the agenda. The agenda is not posted at the site physically. There's no public access required for the off-site location to be open to the public. Each member is going to be limited based on the meeting frequency. So for a city council that has 5 members and meets, a city council that meets twice a month can only do remote 5 times a year under the Just Cause provision. And so any body such as the CAC that holds meeting once a month could only do it 2 times a year. And when participating under Just Cause, the participating member must have their video on while the meeting begins and must state why they're participating remotely. And the reason that they report is also going to be in the meeting's minutes. There also must be a quorum of 3 out of 5 present in the main meeting location where the public is participating in person. And there are 7 reasons that can be given for a Just Cause reason for attending a meeting remotely to participate as a legislative body member. And those reasons would be childcare or family caregiving, having a contagious illness, being on official agency business travel, having a physical or mental condition that is not a disability. And there's 2 new reasons were added for this amendment. So also immunocompromised family members. If you have someone you're caring for who's immunocompromised and you can't risk them getting sick by going to the meeting, then that would be an allowance to use the Just Cause reason. An active military service preventing attendance. So if you're an active military service member. And there's also a revised provision for physical or family medical emergency. So it just strengthened the reason for having a medical emergency of a family member, allowing you to participate remotely without having to post the agenda. And then this is the final reason for a legislative body member for disability. Previously, the Attorney General opined that a legislative body member could not use remote participation as an accommodation because it was a requirement of the job, but that was reversed under SB 707. So in this case, if a council member or legislative body member has a disability, then remote participation could be a reasonable accommodation, and their participation in the meeting would be counted as an in-person participation for any requirements for quorum for location. The video must be on unless that person's disability requires off-camera participation. The remote public access provision of SB 707 requires two-way participation options for the public to attend council meetings, and this could be on audiovisual platform or telephonic service. Zoom would provide both options with minimal setup, as we already use Zoom Webinar. Council meetings are also live streamed for viewing on YouTube, which includes automated closed captioning. And we would also need to rescind under the resolution the current policy that is in place to continue remote public comments that was adopted in response to Zoom bombing that occurred in March of 2024. Another requirement for the remote public access, as I said before, was to address disruptions to remote participation. So in addition to rescinding the current policy that discontinued remote public comments, this would adopt two remote meeting disruption policies. One would be for technical disruptions of meeting service, and one would be for behavior by remote participants. So for disruptions to the meeting service, it would be something like the internet or telephone service or electricity goes out, and that would not allow anyone who's trying to participate remotely from calling or watching the meeting. So if a technical disruption does occur, then the open session of the meeting must be immediately halted. Any closed sessions on the agenda could occur during the outage. The meeting cannot resume open session until at least 1 hour has passed or the problem is fixed, whichever comes first. And after 1 hour, the meeting can resume an open session to either adjourn the meeting or to make a finding that the public interest is better served resuming the meeting without remote participation. The disruptive behavior by a remote participant policy states that the behavior cannot be solely content, so the decision to bar a member of the public from speaking any further remotely would not be able to be based solely on what they're saying, but how their behavior is making an actual disruption to the meeting. So it would have to cause or incite actual disruption to the peace and orderly conduct of the meeting. Verbal warnings would be given by the mayor before taking action against a participant. The participant could have their ability to turn their microphone on or off removed, or they could be removed from the meeting entirely. And the city clerk and IT staff can assist with implementing any of these actions. For the language access and assistance policy, the city has to provide a means for the public to post translated agendas in other languages, and the law does shield the city from liability for the accuracy and content of translated agendas that are posted by the public. Staff is currently evaluating the area and method by which this would be accomplished to prevent inappropriate use. So the policy also provides for the staff to receive and respond to requests and provides the public with a means to make those requests. There would be simplified language added to the agenda with a link to the full procedure on the city's website. And the assistance provided would be determined on a case-by-case basis. We would work to accommodate based on the time, available resources, and the needs of the requester. Readily available accommodations include listening assistance devices, space to be designated for interpreters at the meeting site, and additional time provided for public comment. Okay, and finally, we are requesting that the City Council adopt Resolution 263520 to adopt the below 3 policies for addressing service disruptions, preventing two-way remote participation at council meetings, addressing disruptive behavior by remote participation at council meetings, and outlining procedures for requesting and providing ADA and language assistance at council meetings. Okay,
All right, thank you.
any questions?
All right, any members of the public who wish to address the city council on this particular item? I hear nobody. Do you have anybody, Andrea? No speakers on your part? Okay. Then we'll bring this matter back to city council. I guess, Andrea, this will go into effect, our next meeting, this will be in effect, July 1.
Yes, July 6th will be our first meeting.
July
taking
6th is our
place.
first meeting. Okay, July 6th, excuse me. July 6th will be in effect. So regards to, I think the biggest issue we had last time was the Zoom meetings were, we had disruptions at that time, and that was the reason why we had to cancel the Zoom meetings. What will be the process? Is this going to be exactly the same thing that we did previously? Somebody calls in on Zoom, they push a button, they raise the flag and wish to request to speak, or you are looking at some technologies to better manage the, our,
That's generally going to be the process, but I believe IT was looking at ways to better organize the speakers on Zoom, because there's no way to tell who raised their hand
Right.
first unless you're watching the Zoom participation list. So I mean, we still need to organize.
You're still working on it, John? Do
Develop
you have?
that process.
Maybe-
Yes.
Can you come up to the mic, John, and explain that to us? Because I think that's one of the big questions the city council has. Are we going to have be able to manage it this better?
So to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, the Zoom platform is the platform we use for teleconferencing, bridging the gap between our meetings and the public. Zoom is actively engaging with AI software and enhancements to their platforms to help manage the speakers and to keep the quorum of the meeting flowing smoothly. So we're always engaging in utilizing whatever technology is available to us within the Zoom platforms in order to be able to manage the meeting processes.
Okay, but that won't be ready by July 6th, I assume. I assume July 6th will still use what was the previous platform from Zoom?
Zoom,
Or
that's currently our current platform, yes.
Right, as a current platform. I just, what my goal, I think the entire council's goal is you just want to have be able to better manage it, to make sure things don't get out of hand, and we know how many speakers we have, less confusion on staff's part, especially on the city clerk's part, to try to determine who's speaking on which item. So the maximum we can improve the management of it, the better it is for everybody, including our speakers.
Well, currently, we within the Zoom platforms, we do have, and what you're seeing right now is different from what we have in meetings. So we have really,
Okay. It's been 2
really
years, yeah, I know, it's been
control
2
of it,
years,
yeah.
so there's been advancements since then.
Yeah.
Okay, those are my questions. I'll start with Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the city clerk, let's go to slide number 13. Fourth bullet point, can remove participants' ability to turn on their microphone or remove them from the meeting. Am I reading too much into the weeds here? Is there an implication that the speaker must be given the authority or the ability to turn on and off their mic?
That's currently how it works. No one can just turn on, if you're a participant, you can't just turn on your mic whenever you want. You have to be given permission.
That's what I was getting at. No, and I appreciate you confirming that. And then prior to the big dust-up that we had with the Zoom bombing and the really offensive and vulgar comments that were made, are you prevented from requesting online, or I think we had an online form or application to speak, a request to speak, and then requesting some basic information from them. We can still do that, correct? For minute purposes?
We can ask, but they don't
They don't have to give, I
provide.
understand. Right, okay, I just want to make sure that that's still there, because for those that want to give it, I think it adds credence to their identity and credence to their, the issues or the position that they're trying to articulate, rather than someone who's just willing to hide behind an alias. But anyhow, I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam City Clerk, for the presentation.
Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
My clarification was also on slide 13. So behavior that causes or incites actual disruption to peace and orderly conduct is pretty vague. And thinking back to, and I know that's, you know, how it's written in the bill, but going back to the Zoom bombing that we experienced before, the racist remarks did actually incite disorderly conduct and disturb the peace of the meeting. So my question is there going to be specifics when the policy is drafted? And if not, can we get training? Because I know we're going to encounter this issue again.
So the policy is already attached to the resolution.
Oh, okay.
And it's up to interpretation of the behavior. You can't really predict what every situation is going to be. So at the time, it'll be up to the presiding member of the legislative body.
So if that won't be elaborated, then I can see that's going to be problematic. So we might want to consider some sort of training or examples that we can go through. I mean, because my definition of disturbing the peace might be different than somebody else's, and we really have to be careful about those free speech issues.
It's generally up to the chair of the meeting or the mayor, whoever's running the meeting, to determine what is causing a disruption.
Well, thank you very much.
It would be up to them to the attorney if they weren't right.
Right, and a primary caveat is you have to give the speaker an opportunity to remedy their own actions.
Right.
And if they do not do that, then it would be up to the city council to make that decision.
Diane, I know under California law, there is a section there that talks about when members of the public address the city council, they're required to focus on the jurisdictions, the city's jurisdiction. So they want to talk about the moon in front of the council meetings. That's not technically not our jurisdiction, but I know you've been a little more, because
Well, the public should only address the city council on matters that are within the jurisdiction of the
well, I remember
council
we had
members.
one guy was talking about something about World War II on Zoom, that we cut him off. And then the Zoom bomb that we had, because the N-word was used, there was racial slur towards the Jewish community, so obviously there was hate speech. And I think that happens again. I would ask my council colleagues to call for point of order. I don't believe hate speech, I mean, I'm not saying there's a criminal intent, but I believe when it gets to that point where they're going after a particular group, I don't think that is a subject that should be dealt with in these city council chambers when people want to engage in hate speech. If they want to attack me, that's fine. I'm different. I'm an elected official. We're all elected officials up here. But when we get to that, I think that extreme, I consider that to be hate speech. And then I think that happens again, I'm going to call them out of order and ask them to remedy themselves. And if they wish not to do so, then we'll go on to the next speaker. So I think it's the policy that we will, if that happens again. Councilman Lopez.
Yeah, on this discussion, I'm with you on the hate speech discussion and the use of slurs and derogatory terms, especially those that should have been abolished from like the 1930s and 40s. I will say, though, I'll give you an example, and I'm not trying to be funny, but this actually did happen, I believe, in the city of Newport Beach or Huntington Beach. Two individuals happened to be in their 20s, and they were surfers. One was, he used humor to get his point across, in talking about the sun. And there was some references to tanning his derriere on the beach. And there was an inquiry about the appropriateness and the jurisdiction of the speaker. And I, as absurd as it might be, I would err on the side of letting the speaker speak. If we're going to afford them 2, 3, 5 minutes to speak, I think we should let them, even if we think it's not germane to the function of the city. Because there was actually a council member that raised the inquiry, well, is the sun not germane to the city of Irvine? It was Irvine, thank you. And the city attorney then said at that time, yeah, it was. It is germane to us, therefore, it's a fine. What I'm getting at is, it's a very delicate dance that has to be done. But there are instances where folks will come to us and talk about topics that aren't necessarily germane or within our purview of casting a decision or rendering a decision on. Unfortunately, I'll give you another example. We had a counterpart in a neighboring city who, for several months, the speakers brought up some personal family fallings with this individual. And yes, it was a personal family issue, and it was embarrassing and damaging, and it almost ended the individual's marriage. But nonetheless, that person still defended that person's right to speak at the podium. As offensive or as angry as people in the audience were, he still gavelled them down and said, no, they have the right to speak. Just let them speak. When they're done, the next speaker will come. So I think there just needs to be some balance to it is basically what I'm getting. And if there's anybody up here that could say they don't necessarily like what's being said at the podium, I guess it's me. But nonetheless, as my colleague Bill Rue has said in other meetings, we will still defend the right for people to express themselves. So that's where I'm getting at.
Great, thank you. One more question to council I have. Currently, we have 5 minutes for public comments. Most agencies I serve on is 3 minutes. So my question to councilors, I know this is, we're going back to Zoom, wasn't really of an issue until the latter part of it. Do you want to stay with 5 minutes? You want to go with 3 minutes, or you want to see how this works out first, and then we can, if there's an issue, we can come back to discuss it at that time.
Mr. Mayor, and I did hit my speak button. First, I would say 3 minutes because we'll see how it goes. Second of all, when we're looking
5
at
minutes.
this,
Stick with 5 minutes and see how it goes.
all right.
Is that what we said? I'm just
3.
3 minutes. Okay.
The other thing I would look at is I concur about hate speech and all of that. I think we need to look at profanity and vulgarity. There's no reason to be using foul language. It's unacceptable
Well,
in
there
public.
might be some
And-
constitutional issues there.
Huh?
There might be some constitutional, Diane, if you
we
want
could-
to
we
opine on
can
it, there's
find
probably
out,
some
but I
constitutional
just don't
issues
think
there,
it's
but
appropriate.
when it begins to become hate speech, that's obviously different. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Martinez.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I was getting at, is the line between,
That's the hard part, because we gotta be careful.
And we, yeah. Also, as to the 5 minutes, we've had far fewer problems with people going over their time when we've given them 5 minutes. And generally, even when we give people 5 minutes, they don't take the whole 5 minutes. You might have, 1 or 2 out of 10 speakers, but if those are the speakers that have been designated to make the point, then let them have their 5 minutes. This is our job. We're here. I'll sit here till 1 o'clock in the morning. I know some of our other council members don't want to do that, but this is our job.
Okay, no problem. Councilmember Mendez.
Yeah, I actually like to keep the 5, but when given multiple cards that we have lots of speakers, I don't have a problem with adjusting the times at that time.
No problem. Councilmember Lopez.
Yeah, I'm actually fine with both. But I say we can probably, let's see how it works, given the new change in law. Let's stick to 5. But still, we still reserve the right to limit that. Let's bring up that night where we were here to almost 1:30 in the morning. That was, I think, 2018? No, sorry, that was
2 years ago.
Yes.
Wasn't quite midnight, but.
And we handled it the best we could. We had to take several recesses. But I will agree with my colleague, Ms. Martinez, in that we were elected to this position. If we have to be here for several hours in the night, I've always said I need to do that. But I understand many other colleagues have to be up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning to catch flights for work. So there's a balance again. But yeah,
Okay.
let's go with it, see
All
what we
right.
have. And if we have to change it, we'll come back. I'll support
Sounds
a
like a
3-minute
pretty
Mr.
change.
Mayor, I'll be fine with 5.
Okay.
As far as long meetings, yes, there are times we need them, but we need to think of the public. Many times the public cannot stay here till 1 in the morning. They have jobs to go to, they have families to rear, they want the business done. You don't need to do something when you ask them the time of day, tell them it's 7 o'clock, not, well, it's a time X and it was made here and it's constructed this way. We need to realize we're doing the public's business. Yes, it is our job, but we need to make sure that that public doesn't have to wait till 1 in the morning to see us conclude our business.
All right. Okay, we have consensus to maintain 5 minutes. Can I get a motion? Moved by Councilmember Lopez, sounds like it.
Second. Sure.
Second by Councilmember Mendez, let's do electronic vote. No, you're bending over, so I thought you were going to say
No,
something.
it's fine. This is hot, sorry.
Okay, that's adopted 5-0.
For the resolution as well? Or separate vote
Oh.
for the resolution?
No, that motion's for everything. Okay, Councilmember, just for clarification, Lopez, I believe your motion's for the entire
Yes, to
resolution,
adopt
including
the-
the resolutions and everything else.
To adopt it as presented and also the discussion on the 5 minutes.
Okay.
Maintain 5 minutes. Okay, Councilmember Mendez, since you're second, I assume you agree with that. And with that, it's adopted 5-0. Nope, we just voted, just clarifying. Okay, we're on the next item, 11A. This is regarding the response to City Council inquiry on immigration enforcement activities. All right, who wants to lead off?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, in your agenda packet is a rather lengthy and exhaustive report regarding this particular issue. It addresses, I think, in a very fulsome way, the issues at hand. But I do also think that it's important to provide a presentation to the public so that they have an understanding, at least, as to how we examine this particular issue. The report itself, again, is extremely lengthy and delves into the minutiae of the various issues, but for purposes of brevity, this report will be significantly less in detail, and if any individuals need to look at the report for the detail of the various issues, then that would be the direction that they need to go. But for this purpose, again, in trying to keep this within a reasonable time frame as far as presentation purposes, I have reduced it down to a number of slides. However, even the number of slides is still quite significant because of the not only the detail that was required to address this issue, but because of the number of issues that the City Council itself raised in which they wanted responses on. And so those responses really represent 80% of this report. So we'll move into this at this point in time. So you recall at the April 6, 2026 meeting of the City Council, a direction was given to the city manager to respond back to the following matters related to immigration enforcement actions in Montclair by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. These issues were: 1, consider establishing a local support fund for immigrants and/or families of immigrants impacted by ICE and CBP enforcement actions. 2, consider adoption of a policy prohibiting ICE CBP from staging on city-owned property. 3, consider establishing restrictions that would prohibit city interaction with companies and agencies engaging with ICE CBP, including restrictions against the sharing of data. Consider why Monte Vista Avenue to Mills Avenue and Kingsley Boulevard to Holt Boulevard appear to be targeted by ICE and/or CBP. Consider adoption of a no mask policy for all law enforcement personnel, including federal agents assigned to ICE and/or CBP. I do want to note that the City of Montclair does currently have a policy for Montclair police officers engaging in enforcement activities, except under specified circumstances as it relates to wearing masks. They are prohibited as a general rule from doing that. And then 6, consider removal of flock safety devices and cameras or otherwise prohibit the sharing of flock-generated data. So where do we begin? The U.S. Department of Homeland Security is charged with protecting the nation. Its primary responsibilities include national security, emergency preparedness, immigration, cybersecurity, and disaster response. To facilitate its mission, immigration enforcement divisions under Department of Homeland Security include the following: U.S. Immigrations and Custom Enforcement, which provides immigration enforcement, homeland security investigations, detention, removal operations, and public safety resources, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection, which also provides border security. There are many other programs that fall under the purview of DHS, but for purposes of our presentation, we will not be discussing those issues this evening. Over the past 1.5 years, the dual mission of border and immigration enforcement received the focus of the nation due to media reports and video social media images, which often define the activities of ICE and CBP as overzealous or lethal in relation to their enforcement activities. Despite statements from these various departments that immigration enforcement actions are intended to target undocumented immigrants guilty of serious crimes, federal data does demonstrate that a large share of the people detained or targeted have no criminal convictions or pending charges. ICE's own custody reports and independent analysis indicate that 65% of people taken by ICE had no convictions, and among those with convictions, 93% had never been convicted of a violent offense, and most of those convictions were for nonviolent crimes such as immigration violations, traffic offenses, or petty crimes. By mid-2025, 40% of interior detainees had no prior conviction or pending charge. Other studies also demonstrate that most U.S. immigrants targeted for deportation in 2025 and into 2026 have had no criminal charges. An analysis of nearly 140,000 I-213 forms, which are used by immigration proceedings, from January to mid-August 2025 found that 77% of the people entering deportation proceedings for the first time had no criminal conviction. Only 23% had ever been convicted, and among those, nearly half were for traffic or immigration offenses or for nonviolent crimes. Government data appears to indicate that detention, deportation, and immigration-related enforcement actions over the past year have resulted in the targeting of the following: undocumented individuals without any convictions, many of who have been in the U.S. for years or decades; undocumented persons convicted of minor offenses; undocumented persons convicted of criminal offenses; immigrants with legal status; U.S. citizens and/or immigrants in the U.S. on visas exercising First Amendment rights; undocumented and unaccompanied children; some immigrant children and adults with serious and/or life-threatening health issues. In addition, ICE records show a historic level of deaths in custody over the past year, with ICE disclosing at least 48 deaths since January of 2025, with 32 detainee deaths in calendar year 2025 and 16 in 2026. According to DHS, more than 2.5 million people have left the U.S., including more than 605,000 who have been deported and more than 1.9 million who have voluntarily self-deported. More than 595,000 people have been arrested for immigration violations. The U.S. government does not release granular arrest data for individual cities or neighborhoods. I know that a number of speakers have indicated that they know of specific numbers of arrests in Montclair. That granular data simply is not available. Data sets from immigration enforcement tracking sites are aggregated from data available for larger regional areas defined as areas of responsibility. This is the total number that individual who have spoken to the council or in other venues have indicated they know specifically what the numbers are, but again, that granular detail is not available by ICE. Areas of responsibility provide data totals for larger statistical areas. Table 1 below shows the latest federal government data related to ICE and CBP arrests, detention, and deportations from January 28, 25 to April 4. So you can see in the area of arrests, 458,440 nationally, detention 60,310, deportations 468,450, and alternatives to detention 180,701. This does not include self-deportation. Within the Los Angeles area of responsibility, the data demonstrates that there have been 25,895 arrests, 13,285 detentions, 11,442 deportations, and 15,984 alternatives to detention. So what are alternatives to detention? This is a program that ICE sponsors, and it's in compliance to ensure that they achieve enforcement and removal pursuant their target objectives. ATT deploys the following types of monitoring: facial matching technology, GPS monitoring, telephonic reporting, wrist-worn devices, and self-deportation. Data analysis also demonstrates that a substantial increase in self-deportation has occurred over the last year, and self-deportation effectively is voluntary removal. It is the act of leaving the U.S. voluntarily when a person's immigration status is contested. If a person does not self-deport before an ICE encounter, ICE may use available resources to find, arrest, and detain persons determined by ICE to be in the U.S. without proper documentation. Detainees may remain in ICE detention for months while they wait for a final decision from an immigration judge. Removal by ICE will include bars to reentry for a defined period of time, from 3 years to a permanent reentry bar. One of the issues brought forward by members of the community were ICE activities in Montclair specifically, and the City Council is aware of many of these issues and has been concerned about them over the course of the past year. The recent surge in ICE activity has immigrant right groups across the region striving to provide support through a network of grassroots organizations. In June 2025, ICE initially targeted sites in Pomona and spread its enforcement efforts eastward into the Inland Empire, with Montclair and Ontario drawing significant attention. The Inland Empire has an estimated 260,000 undocumented residents, according to the Inland Empire Immigrants' Rights Advocates, making the region one of the highest areas of concentration for undocumented immigrants in the United States. There are no verifiable publicly available data or official government counts of how many people, again, as I've spoken to earlier, that ICE has arrested in Montclair. Data for Montclair is incorporated into the Los Angeles area of responsibility, and this area includes Los Angeles, metropolitan area counties, which include Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, and the Central Coast counties of Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo. So this is a vast area, and the only way to get detailed information would be to submit a public information request to the federal government. And my understanding in my research is that those requests are backlogged by up to 2 years. So for us to submit a request, we would not have any answer soon as it relates to the granular detail about arrests and detainees related to activities in Montclair. Well, there are verified reports of ICE activity in Montclair. Again, there are no official records as to how the exact numbers actually pan out. Broader ICE enforcement data shows that San Bernardino County, which includes Montclair, has seen significant immigration enforcement activity, and ICE-initiated arrests in Montclair would be part of the larger regional totals. There is no doubt, however, that ICE has maintained a presence in Montclair and other Southern California communities, particularly after it launched a series of immigration actions and arrests and detentions in Los Angeles, which go back to May of 2025, when ICE staged hundreds of enforcement actions that focused on people primarily of Hispanic heritage at places where they work, shop, live, and attend church, and go for food and entertainment. In fact, you will recall that in June 2025, ICE agents reportedly entered Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Montclair, where they took at least one male parishioner into custody. The Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice has posted several videos of ICE sightings in Montclair and other communities, including Pomona, Ontario, Upland. And the IE Community News reports that ICE enforcement actions are targeting day laborers in the Inland Empire, with immigrant right advocates stating that efforts have intensified in cities like Montclair, Ontario, Riverside, and San Bernardino. In response, groups like the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice are continuing deployment of rapid response teams to hotspot locations to meet the needs of families affected by detentions and deportations. ICE enforcement actions have constrained and discouraged Hispanic communities, causing many immigrants to withdraw from participation in public life, decrease attendance at church, avoid family events such as graduation ceremonies, miss medical appointments, and avoid work, shopping, and eating out. For communities like Montclair with large Hispanic populations, immigrant enforcement activities have, in combination with other factors, resulted in downturns in local economies, declines in business activity and business profits, and sharply declining tax revenues, and that will be witnessed when we present to you our fiscal year 26-27 budget, the impacts related to not only the immigration enforcement activities, but other activities related to the federal government have a significant adverse impact on our ability to generate revenue. The mounting volume of data related to federal immigration enforcement activities has created a palpable concern across the nation, including with many residents in Montclair regarding what is perceived as overly aggressive actions, rhetoric, and posturing against immigrant communities. In consideration of expressed concerns, the Montclair City Council asked the city manager to prepare a response to each of the 6 primary points addressed by the concerned citizens at both the March 16, 2026 and April 6, 2026 City Council meetings. The first item, consider establishing a local support fund for immigrants and/or families of immigrants impacted by ICE, CBP enforcement actions. In order to provide persons facing deportation with a defense of their rights regardless of income, race, national origin, or history with the criminal justice system, a growing national grassroots movement has emerged to provide persons at risk of deportation access to legal representation and avoidance of civil immigration detention. The Sixth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guarantees the right to legal representation for criminal cases, but not to civil cases, and immigrant court cases are civil cases. Therefore, the U.S. Constitution does not provide representation. 2 bills in Congress. The Fairness to Freedom Act of 2023, sponsored by our own Congresswoman Norma Torres, along with a complementary bill, the Securing Help for Immigrants Through Education and Legal Development, also known as the SHIELD Act, seek to address the issue of legal representation for persons facing deportation. The Fairness to Freedom Act would establish a universal right to federally funded representation for anyone facing deportation. The Securing Help for Immigrants Through Education and Legal Development Act would create a grant program to support the recruitment and retention of a legal services workforce, providing much of the needed capacity and infrastructure building to provide the necessary assistance through state and local governments as they work towards the objective of representation for members of the immigrant community. Studies demonstrate that people with legal representation are up to 10.5 times more likely to achieve an outcome that allows them to remain in the United States, thereby keeping families together, protecting immigrant rights, and advancing a fair and more humane immigration system. As of April 2026, nearly 2.3 million people in deportation proceedings were without legal representation. An estimated 63% of these detained immigrants in removal proceedings have no attorneys to protect their rights. To date, an estimated 14 states and approximately 70 local jurisdictions across the country have publicly addressed the introduction of programs that publicly fund deportation defense. In California, with the current federal administration escalating immigration enforcement, a growing number of municipal and county governments have decided to step forward and build these legal defense funds. Contributing government agencies argue in defense of the funds by noting that they protect immigrant communities, support local labor and tax bases, and create stability for communities. And there are real facts to demonstrate that undocumented immigrants do contribute significantly to the national, state, and local economies. According to a 2024 report from the Tax Policy Center, undocumented immigrants made the following significant tax contributions, and this is based on an estimated immigrant population of 11 million people in the United States. They paid $96.7 billion in federal, state, and local taxes in 2022. 2022 is the most recent year in which we have data. Most of that amount, $59.4 billion, was paid to the federal government. The remaining $37.3 billion was paid to state and local governments. Paid federal, state, and local taxes of $8,889 per person were paid out by each undocumented immigrant in 2022. For every 1 million undocumented immigrants who reside in the country, public services receive $8.9 billion in additional tax revenue. More than a third of the tax dollars paid by undocumented immigrants go toward payroll taxes dedicated to funding programs that these workers are barred from accessing. Undocumented immigrants paid $25.7 billion in Social Security taxes and $6.4 billion in Medicare taxes and $1.8 billion in unemployment insurance taxes in 2022. At the state and local levels, slightly less than half, 46%, or $15.1 billion of the tax payments made by undocumented immigrants are through sales and excise taxes levied on their purchases. The balance comes from the following: property taxes, 31%, or $10.4 billion, and personal and business income taxes, 21%, or $7 billion. 6 states raised more than $1 billion each in tax revenue from undocumented immigrants living within their borders, including California, $8.5 billion, Texas, $4.9 billion, New York, $3.1 billion, Florida, $1.8 billion, Illinois, $1.5 billion, and New Jersey, $1.3 billion. In 40 states, undocumented immigrants paid higher state and local taxes than the top 1% of households within their borders. Undocumented immigrants are often barred from receiving meaningful tax credits and sometimes do not claim refunds they are owed due to lack of awareness, concern about their immigration status, or insufficient access to tax preparation assistance. Contrary to claims otherwise, undocumented immigrants purportedly receive only limited tax benefits. They are typically not eligible for Social Security retirement benefits or health insurance through Medicare, even though they contribute billions of dollars annually to the federal payroll taxes that fund these benefits. Undocumented immigrants as a group may qualify for federal and earned income tax credit. However, to claim that credit, a tax filer and their spouse and qualifying children must have a Social Security number. They are not eligible to receive Social Security numbers, so they have to file an individual taxpayer identification number, and if they do so, only the filer can claim the benefit. It cannot go to any other member of the family. So the recommendation in this particular request put to the city manager is for the city council to consider an allocation of $25,000 to $50,000 to what we are defining as the Montclair Community Partnership Support Fund. To avoid any appearance of a gift of public funds, any monetary contribution made by the city of Montclair or the Montclair Community Foundation should be specified as a donation to the City of Montclair Community Partner Support Fund, and that would need to be established as a nonprofit, and staff would recommend that it be an online donation platform. Staff also recommends that it be housed under the Montclair Community Foundation, which is already established as a qualified 501(c)(3). City could also consider in-kind commitments of personnel resources as a contribution to the Montclair Community Partner Support Fund. If the approved donation is $50,000, staff would recommend an initial $25,000 donation to the NCPSF, with another $25,000 as a match based on receipt of equivalent donations from other nonprofit, individual, corporate, faith-based contributing partners in a group. And again, this is effectively a required recommendation to avoid the appearance of a gift of public funds. As a local government, you simply cannot hand out checks to individuals without violation of that provision under state law. It would truly need to be a contribution to a benefit fund that receives other contributions based on the fact that the city is making the donation because they consider members of the undocumented immigrant community as vital members of the community, particularly based on the tax contribution information that has previously been presented to you. Undocumented immigrants are typically not, oh, did I go backward? Yeah, I did, sorry. There was a request earlier that the Montclair City Council consider making a donation of $300,000 to this fund. Staff considers that request unreasonable because it is disproportionate to what other much larger agencies have contributed to similarly styled funds. It ignores the many other resources that are available at the state and local level to assist immigrants who apply for needed resources. It fails to consider the agency's existing general operating commitments, and it ignores the current economic conditions in the nation, state, and local region that effectively have reduced consumer confidence and driven down revenue earnings for both the state and local governments. In Los Angeles County, where a number of these funds have already been established, these communities have actually collaborated with the California Community Foundation to create immigrant defense funds. And effectively, the California Community Foundation has significantly endowed these respective funds with grants. Within San Bernardino County, city staff is not aware of any similar type of foundation that could make those kinds of contributions. Montclair would need to establish an online support fund for donations, secure grants, and create partnerships that it would allow for successful implementation of this fund. One collaborative approach is to partner with the Vera Institute of Justice. Through Vera's Safe Network program, Montclair may be eligible for a one-time grant to support immigration legal defense services. City staff further recommends that establishing the Montclair Community Partnership Support Fund as a general assistance fund for which all persons in need of funding in the Montclair community can apply based on a predetermined qualifying requirements, including immigrant legal defense services. City staff also recommends that upon approval of a commercial cannabis program, which will be coming to you in a workshop this Wednesday, that the council consider allocating a portion of the proposed tax commitment designated for community projects for future support of the Montclair Community Partnership Support Fund. City staff also recommends that the City Council authorize staff to provide congressional representatives letters of support encouraging adoption of the Fairness to Freedom Act of 2023 and securing help for immigrants through education and legal development, or the SHIELD Act. The next issue raised by the council was consideration of adoption of a policy prohibiting ICE CBP from staging on city-owned property. Following federal immigration enforcement operations in Minneapolis, Minnesota from late 2025 to early 2026, cities nationwide started considering establishing ICE-free zones in their communities. Chicago initiated the process in 2025 by an executive order which created an ICE-free zone during Operation Midway Blitz. So what are ICE-free zone policies? Well, they're policies that are land use and administrative policy based, which are designed to limit federal agencies from using city or county-owned property as staging areas, processing sites for arrests, or operational bases for civil immigration enforcement. The stated purpose for these ICE-free zones is to prevent or interrupt the use of locally owned infrastructure for ICE-related enforcement actions, reassert local control over public property, minimize the effectiveness of immigration enforcement activities, and to protect residents, and reinforce or reestablish the trust between the local government and immigrant communities. In practice, these ICE-free zone policies really are more symbolic than they are impactful because they have a number of limitations in which they create conflict between local governments and federal and state policymakers. ICE-free zone policies do not prohibit ICE or CBP from making arrests. They simply express avoiding interfering with the legal rights of federal law enforcement personnel, and they clarify that federal authorities can conduct arrests on city property when supported by a judicial warrant. This policy framing is purposeful because it signals to the courts that local governments recognize the constitutional prerogative that the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and that there is no intentional attempt by the local agency to illegally interfere with federal government activities. So are ice-free zones ordinances legal? Well, no, not really. Under various court cases, the Supreme Court has long granted cities and counties authority over their own property and day-to-day operations. Yes, that is true. And that authority exists alongside the Supremacy Clause in the U.S. Constitution. Under Kleinstedts versus Mandel, the court has established supremacy in relation to immigration enforcement. And it specifically states that the court recognizes the federal government's broad authority in immigration policy. The court has also gone on to establish two constitutional doctrines that define the boundaries between two competing authorities. The first one, the anti-commandeering doctrine, requires an unambiguous statement of congressional intent to displace state authority. Under anti-commandeering, it has been firmly established by the Supreme Court in New York versus U.S. that the federal government may enforce federal law on its own without interference of state or local governments. However, the court has modified this position. They've determined that the federal government may not require states to use their personal resources or property, which would also extend to local governments, to carry out federal priorities. And this principle has shaped years of litigation between state and local governments and the U.S. government, but it is also the backbone of sanctuary policies. Then there is the anti-commandeering doctrine. Court decisions, the U.S. Code and the DOJ have repeatedly held that the 10th Amendment prohibits the federal government from compelling states and local localities to participate in immigration enforcement. States and cities may not physically obstruct federal officers or prevent lawful arrests. They are also not required to honor civil immigration detainers or share certain information about immigration status beyond what the federal law mandates. And this interpretation is the genesis of what California passed under SB 54, also known as the California Values Act. And that legislation is important to our discussion because it basically guides what we in the state of California do in relation to federal government immigration enforcement activities. The anti-commandeering doctrine is now being tested at the municipal level. Minnesota and the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul have challenged Operation Metro Surge, alleging that federal agents repeatedly use city-owned property to stage operations without their authorization. This then brings us to the second doctrine, the Intergovernmental Immunity Doctrine. And this doctrine establishes the court's support of the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution. And this is the principle of intergovernmental immunity, which provides that states cannot interfere with or control the operations of the federal government. The rule has been narrowed to the current doctrine, which specifies that a state law violates the intergovernmental immunity doctrine only if it regulates the federal government directly or discriminates against the federal government or those with whom the federal government deals. While anti-commandeering limits federal coercion of states, the Intergovernmental Immunity Doctrine operates in the reverse direction, limiting state interference with federal authority. Under current Supreme Court doctrine, states may not directly regulate the federal government or discriminate against it, and any state law that crosses that line, if it singles out federal officers or contractors for unfavorable treatment or attempts to control how federal operators are conducted, that state or that local government will be in conflict with the Supremacy Clause. In the immigration context, courts have recently drawn clear lines between different types of state restrictions on contracting with ICE. One case finds that in Illinois, statewide ban prohibiting local governments from entering into detention agreements with ICE. The court concludes that the law neither directly regulated nor discriminated against the federal government. So it is clear that the U.S. Supreme Court is tending to move against local governments that try at all to prevent the federal government from executing its duties and responsibilities, including under the area of immigration enforcement. In contrast, however, the Ninth Circuit Court in the Geo Group, in a recent case involving the state of California, struck down California's attempt to bar private companies from operating immigration detention facilities. Specifically, this is related to the facility in Adelanto, reasoning that the law interfered with the federal government's ability to run detention operations in the manner it chose. Staff's recommendation in this regard is that the federal administration has made it clear that it intends to oppose jurisdictions that resist immigration enforcement by every available means. Specifically, a current case, the U.S. versus the state of New Jersey, blocked New Jersey's ICE-free zone policy and reinforces this concern. And going forward, staff believes that this is an important case for us to watch. Staff therefore recommends that the City Council observe how U.S. versus State of New Jersey unfolds before making any determination related to establishing an ICE-free zone policy. If, however, directed, staff would return this item to the City Council for future consideration if the court ultimately agrees that such policies and in what form are permissible and that any such ordinance does not violate SB 54, the California Values Act, which does prohibit local governments in the state of California from interacting and engaging with ICE, CBP, and the Department of Homeland Security in matters related to immigration enforcement, except under specific provisions. The next issue that the council asked staff to explore was considering establishing restrictions that would prohibit the city interaction with companies, agencies engaging with ICE, CBP, including restrictions against the sharing of data. As a general precept, it can be stated that the City of Montclair does not knowingly engage directly with any company that has contractual relations with ICE or CBP. And Montclair staff are not aware of any companies in Montclair that directly deal with these entities on a contractual basis. And even if we did, we lack any authority to control their business interactions. In practical terms and at the granular level, ICBP agents certainly engage in their day-to-day duties and make purchases from businesses both locally and nationally. And many of these businesses probably have common interest in Montclair. However, once again, Montclair is without authority to control these personal activities by members of ICE and CBP. In compliance with California Values Act, Montclair does not specifically allow for the use of its police facilities for ICE-related detention efforts, nor does it cooperate with ICE except as provided by law. SB 54 limits state and local law enforcement from participating in federal immigration enforcement, and this establishes effectively California as a sanctuary state. SB 54 is also designed to protect immigrant communities by restricting the use of state and local resources for federal immigration enforcement while still allowing cooperation in cases involving serious or violent crimes. SB 54 also aims to encourage trust between immigrant communities and law enforcement, prevents diversion of state resources to federal immigration enforcement, and maintains public safety by allowing cooperation with federal authorities only in cases involving serious or violent crimes. Overall, SB 54 establishes California as a sanctuary state, protecting immigrants from federal immigration enforcement while maintaining law enforcement's focus on state and local public safety priorities as it relates to local government interacting with these agencies. ICE and CBP can certainly come into California and engage in activities of their own. Under federal law and the Supremacy Clause, we cannot prevent that. Key provisions of 54 include the following: limits on law enforcement cooperation and data sharing restrictions. Agencies cannot share personal information such as home or work addresses with federal immigration authorities unless the information is already public. City of Montclair does not share data with county, state, and federal agencies as required by law. This data sharing, we do share data with county, state, and federal agencies as required by law. This data sharing, however, is for intended purposes only, such as the sharing of Social Security numbers, payroll data, and other personnel-related data, and this data is not related to immigration programs or a person's immigration status. Public safety services do share data with county, state, and federal agencies as required by law, but the shared information is not intended to be directed for purposes of immigration enforcement activities, nor is it intended to reveal a person's immigration status. We also have prohibition on the immigration status inquiries. Law enforcement personnel are generally prohibited from asking about a person's immigration status during routine interactions. Individuals cannot be held beyond their scheduled release for immigration purposes except under specific circumstances such as felony convictions served in state prison, other serious felonies within 15 years of conviction, or certain higher level misdemeanors within 5 years of conviction. And schools, libraries, health facilities, and courthouses must implement model policies limiting assistance with immigration enforcement, ensuring these spaces remain safe for individuals. The City of Montclair and the Montclair Police Department comply with all of these policies, and we remain committed to the provisions of SB 54. In furtherance of its commitment to SB 54, Montclair does not host an ICE detention facility or an immigration court, and it is unlikely that ICE would seek to locate a detention facility in Montclair, and even if there was an intent to do so, it would require a conditional use permit and approval by the Montclair Planning Commission, and referral to the City Council, and staff would likely make a position of opposition. So what cooperation with federal immigration authorities is required by law, if any? The U.S. Supreme Court has held that because federal immigration law is the supreme law of the land and does create a comprehensive and unified system for immigration enforcement, federal law does preempt states from enforcing their own immigration policy. To maintain federal supremacy while preserving the police powers reserved to the states by the 10th Amendment against commandeering by the federal government, the Immigration and Naturalization Act provides for voluntary cooperation by state and local officials with federal immigration enforcement efforts in limited circumstances. Although state and local jurisdictions cannot prohibit the sharing of information in their possession of the citizenship or immigration status of people they encounter, federal law does not require state and local officials to ask about the citizenship or immigration status of those they encounter, and we do not. Information regarding the citizenship or immigration status, lawful or unlawful, of any individual has been interpreted to apply solely to citizenship and immigration status, and not to information that might be useful to federal immigration officials, such as the release date of those in state or local detention. Does federal law require state and local officials to detain people pursuant to civil immigration detainer warrants? No, it does not. Courts have held that under the 10th Amendment, federal immigration officials may not compel state and local officials to imprison people suspected of being unlawfully present and subject to removal in the United States. Recommendation from city staff is that Montclair will continue to support and maintain a strong commitment to the California Values Act and comply with federal immigration officials to the extent required by law. The next item that the City Council asked city staff to explore is why Monte Vista Avenue to Mills Avenue and Kingsley Boulevard, Hope Boulevard appear to be targeted by ICE and/or CBP. While ICE and CBP do not typically publish their strategic or tactical plans to the public, they do share operational priorities and enforcement strategies with partner agencies through formal agreements. Sharing of priorities and strategies can include targeting high-priority individuals, disrupting criminal networks, and responding to emerging threats. The level of detail shared depends on the sensitivity of the information and the scope of the partnership. Through its enforcement and removal operations program, ICE uses what is called its Section 287G program under the Immigration and Nationality Act to partner with and delegate certain immigration enforcement functions to state and local government officers and through a training certification program. Section 287G agreements legally authorize local officers to question, detain, and process non-citizens under ICE direction and oversight. ICE and CBP also coordinate through MOAs and multi-agency task forces for the assignment of roles such as serving administrative warrants, transporting detainees, or conducting joint investigations. ICE identifies 1,771 agencies throughout the United States that participate in the Section 287G programs, the Section 287G program. And as you will see on the following slide, California and cities in California, including Montclair, do not participate in ICE's 287G program. You can see that there is not a single dot in the state of California or on the West Coast for that matter that demonstrates that any of the states on the West Coast participate in ICE's 287G program. You can see clearly that the focus of participation is clearly in the southern states and the eastern seaboard states. Montclair law enforcement does respond to calls for service from all reporting parties. This was brought up at a previous meeting that they've seen Montclair police officers engaging in events where ICE was involved. Yes, of course, when Montclair Police Department receives calls for service, they have a duty and an obligation to respond to those calls, no matter their nature. That is their duty and their responsibility. Montclair law enforcement does not directly participate in ICE-related enforcement activities. So when they are called to those calls, they are not there to assist ICE. They are there to help control the circumstances or the situation. And if that means that they have to interact and engage with ICE, that is what they have to do if that is what is necessary to control the situation. But they are not there to provide support services for ICE or CBP unless the circumstance requires it. But they certainly are not there as part of a pre-planned effort to assist and support ICE or CBP. Again, Montclair is not a 287G community, nor does Montclair maintain a memorandum of understanding with ICE for the purposes of supporting or engaging in immigration-related enforcement activities in the city of Montclair. The City of Montclair and the Montclair Police Department are not provided with advanced information from DHS, ICE, or CBP related to immigration enforcement activities, except that there may be a notification to the Montclair Police Department that ICE is in the community and they may be engaged in enforcement activity. That is a courtesy, but it is not a request that Montclair Police Department engage or assist. Otherwise, it's just so that the Montclair Police Department is aware that ICE may be in the community. And if you get calls related to ICE's presence, you have been advised by ICE that in fact they are there. Under the California Values Act, again, in relation to Montclair's standing behind that act, we do not allow the use of the Montclair police facilities for ICE-related detention efforts. Montclair does not cooperate with ICE except as provided by law. SB 4 limits California state and local law enforcement from participating in federal immigration enforcement, establishing, again, California as a sanctuary state. SB 54 is also designed to protect immigrant communities by restricting the use of state and local resources for federal immigration enforcement while still allowing cooperation in cases involving serious or violent crimes. City staff are of the opinion that based on available census tract data, this exclusively goes to the issue of why this particular neighborhood area is being targeted. The subject neighborhood would be defined based on this census data by the Department of Homeland Security as a concentrated target area for ICE enforcement due to the neighborhood's demographics. The subject census tract 3.05 is a 0.2 square mile section of southern Montclair, bounded roughly by Hope Boulevard, Mills Avenue, Kingsley Street, and Monte Vista Avenue. The census tract represents approximately 14% of Montclair's population, but diverges sharply from the citywide profile across nearly every demographic, economic, and housing indicator. The census tract reads as a dense, predominantly Hispanic, renter-dominant, lower-income, younger skewing apartment corridor. While Montclair as a whole skews toward homeowner majority with a middle-aged population and moderately diverse housing, the subject tract in question concentrates renters into multifamily housing with elevated poverty rates affecting both children and seniors at notably higher levels than the rest of the city. The data suggests that as with surge-related enforcement activities in major metropolitan cities, including Los Angeles, Chicago, and Minneapolis, ICE's guiding and overall strategy is to conduct enforcement activities in neighborhoods with demographics that suggest success in meeting targeted goals for detentions and deportations as established by the federal administration. City staff therefore conclude that the demographic factors identified in Census Tract 3.05 place it within a defined community profile identified by the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and CBP as a target area for potential concentration of ICE-related enforcement activity. This conclusion is supported by similar demographic details for other target areas and neighboring communities where ICE participates in enforcement activities. There's also a state-based factor related to ICE and the Section 287G agreements, which I spoke of earlier. It is very likely that ICE activity in Montclair is tied to the current approach individual states take toward cooperation with ICE as it relates to these agreements. In Section 287G participating states, ICE arrests are generally made as undocumented immigrants are released from local jails and prisons. According to available data, 59% of ICE arrests in these states happen inside jails and prisons. In contrast, 70% of ICE arrests in non-participating states that take place in individual communities, at work sites, and on the streets, where ICE enforcement actions often target people who have no criminal record, and these are the non-287G states, like California. In these states, ICE agents must find and arrest immigrants in public spaces and at work, on the street, or during large-scale sweeps. In these instances, undocumented immigrants are arrested even if they have never been charged with a crime. These community-based arrests are typically disruptive and happen without advance warning to local law enforcement. Based on this particular issue raised by the City Council and submitted to staff to respond to, it is staff's recommendation that Montclair continue to comply with provisions of SB 54 and not enter into memorandums of understanding or 287G agreements with DHS, ICE, or CBP. And again, I do point out that these agreements, in any event, would be in conflict with SB 54. City Council also asked staff to consider adoption of a no-mask policy for law enforcement personnel, particularly for federal agents assigned to ICE CBP. During a series of federal immigration enforcement actions in 2025 and into 2026 across California and many parts of the nation, federal ICE agents detaining people wore and do continue to wear masks over their faces, creating concern, confusion, panic, and resistance among the public. The California legislature responded with SB 805, the No Vigilantes Act, and SB 627, the No Secret Police Act. Both of these bills were signed into law by Governor Newsom in September 2025. SB 805, the No Vigilantes Act, required law enforcement officers in California to visibly display identification. The law aims to enhance transparency and public safety by requiring all law enforcement officers operating in the state, including federal, state, and local personnel, to visibly display identification showing the name of their agency and either the law enforcement officer's name or badge number during enforcement activities. So what is the current status of SB 805? Well, unfortunately, on April 22, 2026, a Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals panel in U.S. versus Gavin Newsom handed down a ruling that prohibits California from enforcing a section of SB 805 that mandates federal law enforcement officers visibly display identification while carrying out their duties. The decision by the three-judge panel indefinitely extends a temporary ruling that was issued in February 2026, and that ruling is currently pending on appeal and will ultimately go before the U.S. Supreme Court. Right now, the law is considered unconstitutional under the U.S. Constitution's Supremacy Clause. SB 627, the other bill, the No Secret Police Act, prohibited law enforcement officers from wearing masks while performing their duties, And again, I do note that Montclair police officers are already prohibited from wearing masks while engaging in enforcement activities, except under certain circumstances. SB 627 aimed to increase public trust in law enforcement and government institutions by restricting ICE agents from wearing masks during enforcement activities. California argued that the ban would ensure the public can clearly identify individuals exercising law enforcement activity. So what is the current status of SB 627? U.S. District Court judge in United States versus State of California issued a ruling stating that while California had the general power to prohibit federal officers from wearing masks, it could not do so in a discriminatory manner. So what happened effectively is that the law didn't speak to preventing the wearing of masks for state officers. It only focused on federal officers, and therefore the court blocked its enforcement. However, within the hours of ruling on SB 805, the California State Legislature took up SB 1004, and that would change SB 627 so that it applied the no mask rule to all peace officers in the state, as recommended under United States versus State of California decision. So it would include state officers as well as federal officers. If 1004 becomes law, it would appear to eliminate the basis for the preliminary injunction. However, again, it probably will have to go to the Supreme Court for a ruling, and it will have to probably confront the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution. At this time, any ordinance adopted by the Montclair City Council imposing a ban on masks for law enforcement personnel acting in the capacity of their official duties would be a violation of a valid court decision. And the California Constitution is quite clear that within the state statutory framework, there are clear limits on what local ordinances can do. Specifically, the Constitution grants cities and counties the power to make and enforce local ordinances that are not in conflict with general law. If a local agency attempts to adopt an ordinance that violates state law or a binding court decision, that ordinance will be unenforceable and may be struck down. An ordinance in violation can also expose the local agency to legal liability, including fines and other penalties. If the Supreme Court does rule in favor of states in relation to the no mask mandates and or the visible display of identification, then the matter would be settled law in the state of California, and the state would implement these particular provisions, and it would pave the way for adoption of a local ordinance if the city council determines that they want to go that way, although adoption of a local ordinance would be unnecessary at that point. Staff's recommendation is to just wait and see how this issue pans out at the federal level under Supreme Court decisions. Next item that the staff was asked to examine was consider removal of flock safety devices and cameras or otherwise prohibit the sharing of flock-generated data. Flock is a public safety technology company used by the Montclair Police Department to locate vehicles, investigate incidents, and collaborate across jurisdictions while maintaining clear privacy safeguards, local control, and responsible data use. The Montclair Police Department maintains full control over flock camera usage, access permissions, and data retention. Flock cameras focus on capturing specific vehicle information as vehicles pass through a defined location. And this collected data includes license plate numbers, vehicle make, model, color, and body type, and the date, time, and general location of the detection. The data collection is limited to information relevant to public safety. The flock camera system does not use facial recognition technology. It allows for external access. It does not allow for external access to data, and it does not permit flock data to be automatically merged into a national database. Flock limits the use of its technology for specific public safety investigations, and the Montclair Police Department is responsible for making certain that the technology is used only for the stated purposes. Flock is an independent company, and it is not associated or integrated with Palantir Technologies. This is a company that provides operating systems to the U.S. government. It is also the company that is the focus of many accusations of concern about the government compiling data, particularly as it relates to immigration enforcement. So it is reported that Planner technology can turn scattered data into useful intelligence relatively fast, placing Planner at the center, again, of this national debate over surveillance, privacy, and civil liberties, raising questions about balancing security and privacy. Planner faces criticism from civil liberties advocates, lawmakers, and former employees who argue that the powerful technology placed in government hands poses grave threats to privacy, constitutional rights, and democratic society foundations. The most persistent criticism of Palantir's technology is that it enables a de facto national surveillance system, and that Palantir is helping to build a mega database combining sensitive personal information on Americans, linking records from the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, the Department of Health and Human Services, Social Security Administration, and Internal Revenue Service. This perception was triggered by an executive order from the current federal administration that requires federal agencies to eliminate data sharing barriers and merge this data together. The Privacy Act of 1974 is the cornerstone for federal public data privacy. The act establishes rules for how federal agencies can collect or use and disclose personally identifiable information. However, it has a number of weaknesses. Its system of records definition struggles with modern databases where individual information can be retrieved through complex inquiries and algorithmic analysis. And further, the Act contains broad exemptions for law enforcement and national security systems, limiting applicability to many of Palantir's most significant government clients. However, there is a bill in Congress called the Algorithmic Accountability Act of 2023, which aims to create new safeguards for systems making critical decisions affecting Americans' lives, including access to housing, employment, and credit, and education. The Accountability Act's core requirement would mandate companies using or selling these systems to conduct detailed impact assessments evaluating consumer effects, and these assessments would analyze systems for potential flaws, safety risks, and discriminatory treatment. Crucially, the Accountability Act would empower the Federal Trade Commission to create a public repository of information where automated systems are being used, giving consumers and advocates unprecedented transparency, and this would help to limit Palantir's work with government. In relation to this issue, staff's recommendation is that the Montclair Police Department, which has successfully deployed and used flock cameras to retrieve stolen vehicles, investigate and solve major crimes, and achieve major public safety outcomes for the Montclair community, be allowed to use flock cameras. Flock cameras generate data which may be shared with neighboring police agencies for public safety purposes, and its generated data is integral to reports prepared for submission of crime statistics to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. City staff also recommends encouraging the city's congressional representatives to support passing the Algorithmic Accountability Act of 2023. That concludes my comments, and I'm certainly available to respond to any questions members of the City Council have regarding the verbal presentation as well as the exhaustive agenda report.
Very much, City Manager Starr. Let's go to public comment this time. Andrew, how many speakers do you have at this time? Speaker cards request?
I have 8 cards
8?
on this item.
Okay. And I also believe you have written comments received as well. That's
Yes.
at the dais right now?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start with what we received, and if you want to announce the individuals who submitted written requests, we can do that afterwards. So
Okay.
let's go ahead. We'll have 3 minutes, and we'll start.
Okay. First speaker is Jennifer L., followed by Eddie Torres.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I am here to read the demands that we have of the City Council. Montclair should establish 2 funds in support of immigrants affected by kidnappings and detentions, 1 legal support fund of at least $50,000, 1 housing and basic needs support fund, of at least 50,000. Santa Ana has 2 separate immigrant support funds. Our community has been able to crowdfund more than 50,000 to support immigrant community members in less than 1 year just through grassroots efforts. There is no reason the city of Montclair can't raise at minimum these amounts. 2, Montclair must end its contract with Flock. Flock is a threat to our civil liberties. It is not just a tool for tracking vehicles. Flock cams record our conversations and phone screens without our consent. That data can be accessed by various parties. There is increasing evidence that Flock is subject to security vulnerabilities, and more cities are ending their contracts with Flock because of this. The $100,000 that the city pays every year to Flock can be repurposed to meaningfully benefit our community. For example, the funds mentioned above. 3, the city must do more to understand how and why ICE, CBP have chosen to target specific areas of our city. We demand that the city submit a Freedom of Information Act request for this information as a matter of accountability to constituents. So I believe right now is a very historical moment, and you will be remembered for your decisions with meeting our demands. And I think in regards to knowing, earlier you guys were talking about the Zoom and knowing when to cut off a speaker for certain speech and language, but I'm not sure if you are aware of how you uphold white supremacy. So it would be very hard for you to discern when somebody is being, white supremacist. Anyways. So yes, please meet all of the community's demands. Because as you learned in the presentation, the undocumented community supports the city. And as we saw earlier today, the Teamsters need you to pay them more. And so one way to do that is to support the undocumented community by meeting all of our demands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Eddie Torres, followed by Daniela Ramos.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. Thank you for having us. My name is Eddie Torres. I'm the Policy Director with the ELN Coalition for American Justice. As you know, we operate the hotline for rapid response in the ELN Empire, and we respond to ICE and Border Patrol, DHS sightings in our community. In the past year, we've confirmed 75 incidents in the city of Montclair that includes sightings and arrests. I know it's not a public database, but it is the hard work of volunteers behind me that are patrolling your community day in and day out. I also want to take this opportunity to thank staff for creating this comprehensive report. It's one of the first times I've seen a city create such a comprehensive and long report on immigration. So I do want to thank you for that. However, with that said, I do think there's plenty of room in order to find the recommendations that we're providing as an organization, as a community, and what you are proposing, which we don't agree with. For example, creating a well-funded legal justice fund of 25 or 50K is simply not enough. I think in the report, something that's missing is exactly how much it does cost to retain a lawyer for people that are currently in detention. It's extremely expensive. They can cost $20,000 for bond and to retain a lawyer. So if we're creating a fund that's only 25, maybe 50,000, how many families is that? Right, give or take 2, maybe 3 if we're lucky. That's just solely funded through the city of Montclair. Like my colleague mentioned, of course, crowdfunding is an opportunity. We have the Vera Institute that's providing these programs. We have been in contact with them for different cities and counties as well. The difference between Pasadena and Santa Ana and other cities is that those counties actually support their community, right? They have invested funds into legal defense funds at the county level, at the very local level as well. Unfortunately, here in San Bernardino County, we don't have that. The county doesn't do that, neither does Riverside County as well. So it's up to the cities, it's up to local community members like the ones behind me to take up that mantle and push local elects like yourself in order to provide a comprehensive legal justice fund of $150,000 to start off. I think that's a place where
we can commit to in order to have a sufficient fund for the families that have been impacted, not just in the past year and a half or so, but going back to the first Trump administration, San Bernardino County had the highest ICE arrest rate in the whole country. In the whole country, okay? For many reasons, largely because we have a huge ICE processing center in our backyard, just up the road in the high desert. Unless that center gets shut down, we're not going to see a decrease of that ICE arrest information in our communities, right? So we need to work hand in hand to accomplish that as well. So I just wanted to have 14 seconds left, but I just wanted to emphasize that point. We need to build a strong legal justice fund. We can start at 150K. We can find philanthropic opportunities, investors, foundations that can match that funding. We can create a really robust fund that can last for a long time to support a lot of our immigrant communities here in Montclair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniela Ramos, followed by Benjamin Wood.
The youth organizer for the Inland Empire Immigrant Youth Collective. Our organization helps undocumented students gain professional development, community, and advocacy skills here in San Bernardino and Riverside counties. Immigrant families have been in Montclair for decades. It's their home. They don't deserve to live in fear. Many of the immigrant enforcement in the city and all over the Inland Empire has been unlawful and violent. Students feel the heavy weight of what's happening around them. They tell us their experience of fear and worry for themselves and their families. A decrease in student attendance has been happening all over the Inland Empire. Parents and students feel too scared to seek resources they need from the city, especially when the city lacks safe spaces for them. Immigrant families are an integral part of the city. It's time to make change and ensure that all the members of this community know they are valued and welcomed. City-owned spaces and city resources should not be used to harm residents, regardless of immigration status. There should be a clear stance from the City Council that restricts ICE and CBP from using city spaces as staging areas. The city needs to create legal funds and help those whose head of households have been deported or held in detention. I can't imagine what a student must feel knowing that their parents were ripped away from them, but also have to worry about financial consequences and looking for that legal support. I speak for myself as a first-generation student coming from an immigrant family. This is especially true for a lot of first-generation students because they have to help translate, they have to help pay bills, they have to help navigate a lot of things, including just sometimes that technological barrier. So even looking for the legal support can be really difficult for these students. On top of that, they don't have the money to pay for it. It really puts so much weight on the youth here in our communities. And as City Council, you do have a power to relieve the youth of a lot of that. Thank you for your time. Yes.
Thank you.
Next is Benjamin Wood, followed by Shirley M.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city staff, and beloved community. As most of you know, my name is Benjamin Wood, and I've made the beautiful city of Montclair my home for about 15 years now. But I'm here tonight to speak as the director of the Legal Services Department at the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice. I read your report, Mr. Starr. Thank you to yourself and to your staff for putting that together. My colleague Eddie hit many of the points that I was going to, so I'm just going to jump to the funding proposal. Just to give you an idea of what a small organization like ours, there's 3 of us that are full-time staff in the legal department, is capable of doing. We just wrapped up a year-long grant that provided $125,000 over the course of the year. Our deliverables were 275 intakes, 100 tailored consultations with Know Your Rights information, 25 representation in 25 affirmative cases, and full scope representation in 5 defensive cases. We met and exceeded those goals. We provided 390 intakes, 191 consultations, almost double what we were contracted to do, 37 affirmative cases, and 6 full scope removal defense cases, in addition to also providing dozens of Know Your Rights presentations to the members of our community, and at least 2 large-scale clinics and several smaller scale ones. This particular grant asked us to focus on vulnerable communities, and by vulnerable, they defined it as members of the LGBTQ community, which happy Pride Month, everyone, by the way, and also people living in rural areas. And so the numbers that I just shared with you were targeting those particular vulnerable communities. You, as a decision-making body, would, if you were going to establish a fund like the Montclair Resource Fund that you mentioned, would be able to tell us or whoever you decide to contract with. It doesn't have to be us. There are many qualified organizations, nonprofits in the region who provide service to low-income, indigent, and detained individuals. The PEOC, just next door in Pomona, the Pomona Economic Opportunity Center, the Catholic Charities, the Libreria del Pueblo, San Bernardino Community Services Center, Immigrant Defenders Law Center, all very capable, very competent organizations. As far as matching funds go, Vera has been mentioned, but I've met with them and they want to see some skin in the game. They want the jurisdiction to put forth at least 100,000. And I know that that is not a lot for you in a city that is well managed like Montclair, but for the families, and the numbers are really inconsequential. What really matters is the families in our community. That $100,000 means the difference between family separation and.
Thank you.
Shirley M., followed by Tina Silva.
Good evening. Thank you for the city staff's response to our demands. I did read the report. I appreciate that you looked at the facts, but I think what's missing is vision, determination, and a serious commitment to long-term community safety so that people that live and work in Montclair thrive and not just survive. What Montclair needs from all of you city council members is for you to be inspired and driven to lead. If you have the will, you can do better than the recommended actions that we just heard. So first, I urge you to establish 2 funds to support immigrants in Montclair following the model of the city of Santa Ana, which has a legal support fund as well as a housing and basic needs fund. And each of these should be at least $50,000. Your report didn't take a serious look at constituent needs. We, along with the immigrant justice nonprofits in our area, support families affected by detentions every day. And you may dismiss qualitative data, but people's experiences of suffering are real. If you spoke directly with more of them, you would know this, and you would know how much things cost, as our colleagues from ICIJ have just detailed. And you would push to do what you can do as a city to act. Our little ragtag network of unpaid volunteers with People Defend, MOU, Montclair, Ontario Upland, and our sister fund, the IE Relief Fund, have raised over $50,000 in the past year. We are not even a 501c3 nonprofit. If you can start with $25,000 from the city, we know you can do better than us. You find $300,000 in your budget to pay the city manager's salary. So please study the possibility of creating 2 funds and agendize that for full discussion. That's no shade on you, City Manager Starr, that's just a fact. Second, I urge you to end Montclair's contract with Flock. This is a no-brainer. There is already litigation against cities for violating people's constitutional rights by contracting with Flock. The danger of leaks and malicious activity is too great. We've sent you written sources addressing these concerns, so we ask that you please agendize this item for full discussion as well. So once more with feeling, okay? You're not designing a rewards program for corporate customers. You are elected representatives looking out for the best interests of your constituents. Thank you.
Next is Tina Silva, followed by Priscilla Garcia.
Good evening. My name is Tina Silva, and I am a concerned community member and volunteer with the Pomona Economic Opportunity Center's Migro Watch program. For the last year, I have spent time at the Home Depot on Mountain in Upland, where day laborers gather to seek work and support their families. Over the past 6 to 7 months, we know of at least 5 of those workers at the Upland Home Depot who are residents of this city, Montclair, and who were detained by ICE or Border Patrol and deported. These are not statistics to us. They are our fathers, our husbands, our neighbors, and members of our community. Because of our ongoing relationships with these workers and their families, we have seen firsthand the devastating impact of these deportations. Families have lost their primary source of income. Parents are struggling to pay rent, buy groceries, and keep their children housed and stable. The consequences extend far beyond the individual who has been detained. I appreciate the City of Montclair for discussing ways to support residents affected by immigration enforcement. Tonight, I urge the City Council to take meaningful action. First, establish 2 funds for Montclair residents and workers affected by immigration enforcement since January 2025, and one for legal assistance and one for housing and basic needs, with at least $50,000 allocated to each fund. Second, end Montclair's contract with Flock. More than a dozen California jurisdictions and over 80 communities nationwide have ended or suspended these contracts due to concerns about privacy, data sharing, and the potential impact on immigrant communities. California cities like Santa Cruz, Mountain View, and South Pasadena have canceled Flock contracts over concerns about privacy, ICE access, and misuse of resident data. Santa Cruz alone voted 6-1 to terminate its contract after reports that local camera data was accessed thousands of times on behalf of federal agencies, including ICE. Mountain View shut down its Flock cameras after discovering outside agencies were accessing local data without community approval. Third, file a Freedom of Information Act request with the Department of Homeland Security to provide transparency regarding immigration enforcement activities within Montclair. We have time. Our residents deserve to know what is happening in their community. Montclair has an opportunity to stand with its residents during a difficult time, and I urge you to take these steps and demonstrate that every member of our community matters. Thank you.
Okay, next is Priscilla Garcia, followed by Emily Miranda.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I, like my friends, want to start by saying thank you for the factually based response to our demands. It was thorough. Appreciate being taken seriously. I have a lot of the similar things written, but I'm going to start by asking, kind of echoing what folks have said. While the report was thorough, it did, in my opinion, lack vision and it lacked courage. I heard you say various times that you're concerned with being at odds or in conflict with the federal government. Are we not already at odds with the federal government? Are you all? You don't have to answer, I know the Brown Act. But really go home and think about it. You heard the data, you heard how much our community contributes, how little they get back. If you're not at odds, please let it be known. So what if you get sued? You'll be on the right side of history. We're gonna stand behind you. We're not just here complaining and pretending. If the federal government comes knocking at your door because you were too courageous, we will stand here with you. Mr. Mayor, as a Christian, are you not at odds with the federal government's behavior? Just think about that. You recommended a legal fund of $25K, maxing at $50K. My colleagues over at IC4IJ know better than I do how much legal representation costs. You also said, as you were reporting back, that there are a lot of resources that community members can tap into. I happen to be one of those resources. One of the people detained at Adelanto knew my phone number and then shared it with all the men detained at the Adelanto Desert View Annex, Section B1. So I get calls every single day. Sometimes I'm on a call with someone from Adelanto and another call is coming in. So I want you to sit with the weight of me, a person without legal training, with very little experience, getting these calls constantly. I didn't sign up for this, but my friends make me feel powerful and able to answer the call. I'm asking you to answer the call. Have you gone to Adelanto to visit your constituents who are still detained there? If you don't know how to do it, one of us will tell you how to do it. If you want to answer a phone call the next time I get it, I can ask for permission so you can hear the call. To deposit $50 for someone's commissary fund costs $7.95. So we keep saying the federal government and we keep putting blame on the federal government. We're failing to note that this is a game for profit. We need to name that GEO is playing all of us. There are people in Adelanto who want to be set free, who want to be deported, and
Miranda. The microphone is out. Last speaker is Emily Miranda.
Miranda. I am a longtime resident and current resident of Montclair. I guess I echo a lot of the same things that the community has said. And I do thank you for taking the time to do the report. It's a big turnaround from the response that was done by City Council when community first came about and kind of brought these demands forward. And so I appreciate that part. What I think is missing and continues to be missing is the effort to really listen to community that has gone through this. And I can't even like try to write things down because it is very emotional the way like everyone has described. But I want you to really think about the fact that the community within this space weekly, almost every morning, 2 to 3 times a week, was waking up to knowing that someone from their community was being taken. These are fathers, grandmas, grandpas. It was not just one type of person. These were people that were going to work, waiting at the bus stop, just trying to live their lives, waking up knowing that the risk of leaving your home and walking to your car, you could not come back to your family. There is one person within your community that did not. He only got to come home to literally be able to say goodbye to his family, to see them, to be able to hug them, and then his life was lost. And it doesn't matter how many times I seem to say this or the community seems to say it, there still is like, that report says it, that is missing. Because what you should be doing is being able to go down and talk to these families. There should be anecdotes in that report of what are these families experiencing? What do they need? Asking them directly. That is your position. That is what you should be doing. You have the time to do that. You should be prioritizing that. When you talked about the ice-free zones and what that symbols, it will symbol so much. I'm gonna speak for myself, to myself, of where you actually stand. Because for all of those months, it felt like you knew what was happening because the police department was present. So there was an awareness that this was happening, but the city said nothing. So what did that tell me and all of my neighbors? That the city knows that this is going on and they do not care. So why would I come here? Why would I come here and say anything? And I know that is still how the community feels. So all of that is more than symbolic. It's gonna tell your community where you really stand. And I could tell you, them even seeing that this is on the agenda gives them some type of hope. So everything that has been said here, I urge you to continue, but to really make that concerted effort and really feel it, like to really want to do it, to ask community where are they at. Because I can tell you, as someone that moves through that area every day,
Thank you. Anybody else? Are we,
So the city received 12 comments from individuals that supported the city taking the actions included in establishing two $50,000 funds to support impacted families and workers, cutting ties with Flock, and requesting public records and information from DHS regarding immigration enforcement activities and operations conducted in Montclair. So other than those 12 comments, that would be the end of the public
okay.
comment section.
And we have all their names, and those names will be entered into the record as well.
I could read the names.
Go ahead.
So Patricia Hobbs, Marcia Campbell, Vanessa Medina Reynaga, Norma Palacios, Darcy Contat, Martha Parker, Laura Moreno, Fanelli Milan, Giselle Ramos, Emily Andreo, Katina Vlastos, and Claudia Bautista Perales.
Okay, again, those will be read in the record. Okay. Matters back to the city council again. Ed, just some questions I have. Regarding, is there any federal legislation going on right now introduced? I realize it's that one house is a minority, the other house is a majority, but is there any federal immigration reform or whatever the word you want to call it, where kind of like Reagan 2.0 or something close to that? Ed, in your research, did you come across anything?
No, there is no federal
There's nothing.
government effort to
I mean-
help or assist immigrants. Unfortunately, the federal government is taking an anti-position against undocumented immigrants. There's
Right.
nothing,
Which is-
nothing available to assist in that
Which
regard.
is very unfortunate, because I do believe that that is one, other than better managing our borders, we should also have federal legislation passed that deals with undocumented immigrants in this country who are at least contributing to this country and paying taxes and doing all the right things to become residents and eventually U.S. citizens. But I'm not a member of Congress, but I do know that I did meet with Congressman Torres back in April, and obviously this is an issue we talked about. And she's obviously very concerned. She's going, going to the detention centers, and she encouraged anybody who has an issue to contact her office. But you mentioned her bill, what's the bill that she has? Excuse me, I'll try to find it. The Fairness to Freedom Act. That will allocate federal funds to provide legal services. Where's that bill at? Any idea where that bill is right now, Ed? Is that moving around somewhere, or is it kind of stuck, stuck somewhere right now in
Yeah,
the
no,
House?
it's stuck, and it
Yeah.
probably won't
Unless there's
see light of day until 2028 or 2029.
well, unless there's a change of, depending on the midterm elections, that may move if there's a change of leadership in both houses. So, but
Yeah,
I
yes.
do believe that we should at least send a letter of support. She is our congresswoman. This, support of this bill. I'm not sure if my colleagues agree with me with that. I will support at least sending a bill, a letter of support of that of her legislation, of the Freedom Act, to Congressman Torres and to our U.S. senators. Again, I know that all three of those who are very concerned about the status of the immigration enforcement in this country, including myself, and I think some of my colleagues do. Regarding this relief fund, the $25,000, I believe you're proposing was $25,000 from the general fund, and then $25,000 from a volunteer from donations, matching is what you set it up. Can you explain that a little bit, Ed?
Well, the recommendation is 25,000 to 50,000. If the council wants to do 50,000, again, because it does need to avoid the appearance of a gift of public funds, it needs to be a contribution to an established fund that will receive donations from others and then be used for the purposes as specified for legal defense services or for other necessities that individuals in the community find that they need assistance on. Not limiting it to any one group, but making it available to the community as a whole. So if the council's direction was 50,000, then the suggestion is that 25,000 be placed in there as seed money immediately, and then we set up the online donation, and as funding contributions come in, then the other 25,000 would flow to match whatever else is put into the fund. Alternatively, as indicated, we would look at grants. We would also look at partnering with other entities to try and secure more money. There is also a recommendation that if the council does approve the cannabis ordinance, there would be a provision in the ordinance that would allow for funding for community activities purposes. 2% of the 7% total funding for the sales tax that would be generated for that. And then a portion of that fund could also go into this account. We don't know what the amount would be at this point in time. We're hoping and expecting that the ordinance would generate a couple of $1 million a year, which would mean that there would be several $100,000 on an annual basis that the council would be able to direct to other purposes up to and including this particular fund that we are recommending be established.
So let me understand your recommendation, the 50,000. Are you saying that's for any household? So it could be, is that what am I hearing?
Yes, it would be non-discriminatory.
So if someone loses their job, for example,
Yes.
and they have an income problem, they got to pay
Yes.
their bills or their utilities. Those same funds could be used for someone who's unemployed or someone who's got sick and can't go to work, or in this case, someone who's been detained for immigration
Correct.
reasons. So this funds could be used by any household in Montclair, not just restricted to one group.
Yes, I believe it would secure more funding because grants
Right.
would be available.
Okay.
There are going to be no federal grants available for
Right.
immigration-related services. It's just not going to happen. But there are probably many state and other local grants that are available for a more generalized fund for a variety of purposes.
Okay, so, and then you're going through the budget process. So you're saying that, I know our budget's tough this year. We're going to have a deficit this year in the budget. Obviously, we're negotiating with our employees, as you saw earlier today.
Yes.
So we have a very tight budget. So you're saying we have maybe, we can do $25,000 out of the budget? We still have to go through the process, but right now it's about 25,000?
Well, I'm saying that I would not exceed 50,000 at this point.
Exceed
But if you're
50,000.
going to do 50,000,
Okay.
25,000 immediately and the other 25,000 to match donations.
Match donations.
That come into it, whether
And
it's
then-
by grants
Okay.
or whatever other purpose.
Okay, and then we can see what the demand of the funds are, and then later on, we can, as the cannabis money comes in, we can, it's been our goal is to commit some of the cannabis money towards community projects or to support families or children.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion then. I'm gonna start with a motion and we'll have comments. I'm gonna move that we receive and file this report. We go to 2, with establishment of local support fund, which also includes to support all households in Montclair based on the recommendation of the staff report. Number B, that we go with a recommendation from staff regarding ICE freeze policy regarding the U.S. Supreme Court. And then item C, which is continue to support and maintain Montclair's commitment. That's the recommendation of SB 54. Item D, obviously a recommendation, I think whatever staff's recommendation, and that includes that City of Montclair comply with provisions of SB 54, not enter a memorandum of understanding with DHS, ICE, or CBP. And this is in the staff report, I apologize. I'm looking at page 183, 184. I'm basically going with the staff's report recommendation. Item E, the recommendation there, this is regarding no masks, that we follow California law, whatever the Supreme Court decision is. And then item F, which is regarding flock, as the recommendation state there, that includes, I believe, regarding the, I can't say that, Ed. Accountability Act, that we submit a letter in support of the Privacy Act 74. I'm sorry. There was some changes here.
Algorithmic
There it is, on the
Accountability
bottom
Act
there.
of 2023.
We submit a letter of passage of that 2023 Act. So that's my motion. Again, going back to A, which is this fund. This fund is to be for all Montclair households, and as the city manager myself had. And also, we submit a letter to Congressman Torres in support of her legislation, which is I forgot the legislation to fund legal costs from the federal
I'm going
government.
to make an amended motion.
Oh, that's my motion. Before that, can I get a second to the motion?
I have an amended motion to make.
Can I get a second to my motion first?
For purposes of putting it on the table, I will second the motion,
Okay,
but I'll second the motion to get it on the table, and
okay.
our
Now
colleague
we'll
can
go to
make the
council.
amendment.
We'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Martinez now.
Yeah, so my amended motion would be to receive and file. If we have 50,000, we can consider discussing $100,000. We can consider using our resources and our outreach, our social media, to ask for in-kind contributions in the amount of another $100,000. We can obtain grant funding, or at least try to obtain the grant funding. And because we have the cannabis discussion on the 3rd, there's no harm in placing this discussion on the agenda. I would also add to the motion, as far as the flock usage, just a general, Google search will tell you that part of the issue with flock is that there's an ability to grant permission to the federal government that can be disabled by our local agencies. I don't know if that's the problem that's been caused in other agencies when there's been that information shared. I think we need to discuss it. We need to know whether we have disabled that sharing agreement. We need to know whether the disabled feature was the problem in the other agencies, because if that was not it, if they disabled it and we still had an issue with Flock, then we might want to consider suspending our agreement with Flock and considering other programs that we might be able to use. And third, I would like to add, excuse me, lots of notes. To make a Freedom of Information Act request. I don't see any harm in doing that.
Okay, that's the amendment to my motion. Is there a second to the amendment? No? That amendment fails. Ed, going to Flock request, I apologize to council, but on the Flock issue, are we experiencing any issues? I'm not aware of any issues on the Flock. I know Flock's been very successful in terms of criminal activity and apprehending some very dangerous people out, get them off our streets, but we're not having any issues with Flock. Am I correct, Ed?
No, we're not having issues with Flock, and Flock, to my knowledge, does not collect data the way that has been alluded to by Google research or by those who make accusations that Flock is providing this detail. It does not have those connections, not that I've seen in my research. I certainly understand that there is plenty of anecdotal information out there regarding Flock and what it has done, but that is also the case for many things. When people have a disagreement with its purpose, they find reasons to say it does something that it necessarily does not do. I'm not saying that Flock does or does not do these things. I'm just saying that my research has not demonstrated that Flock represents this concern.
Right.
And Flock itself has gone to elaborate detail to disassociate itself from Palantir Technologies, which again is the real focus of this sharing of information. And Flock has demonstrated that they don't have that connection. They do not provide any information to Palantir. They do not provide any information to DHS. They don't generate that kind of information. They are a camera that provides reading of license plates to the police department, and that reading of a license plate tells whether or not that vehicle is stolen, or if the police department is looking for somebody in the community who has committed a crime and they know the license plate. Flock identifies that license plate and gives indication to the police department. Beyond that, we really don't use Flock for a lot of other purposes, and I don't even know that it has the capacity to do a lot of the other things that some individuals think that it is capable of doing. But again, I can't say that I've researched that to the nth degree to say specifically that, that Flock doesn't have greater capacity or provides information indirectly to the federal government. But every agency provides information to federal government, as I indicated in my report. We provide information to the federal government. But what that agency does with that information, including sharing it with other agencies, we can't control. And as I also indicated, there is an executive order that tells federal government agencies to drop their bars of sharing data. So if we provide payroll data to the Social Security Administration, we can't stop them from sharing Social Security numbers or EIN numbers or individual identification numbers with other agencies in the federal government. We don't control that. That is a decision between departments and by policy of the federal government. And so, yes, any information is capable of flowing into the federal government and being shared, but we cannot operate without sharing information. Otherwise, we cannot meet payroll, we cannot produce reports, we cannot meet our obligations to the federal government in a variety of different ways. We cannot not do that. And whether or not Flock provides that linkage, I'm not aware that it does. I have not seen anything that positively demonstrates that it does. I'm aware of the anecdotal stories. I'm aware that some agencies have demonstrated concern, but is there factual basis there? That has not been established to my satisfaction, but we will continue to explore that.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry? Okay, Council Mayor Pro Tem Martinez, did you have anything you guys want to say?
Yeah, yes, point of information. So I had two questions. I'm sorry, Councilmember Rue? I thought he was talking to me.
We're in discussions of the motion right now, so Mayor Pro Tem Martinez has the floor.
So one of my questions is on page 184, and this is just for clarity. Under the recommendation section A, it says data, right in the middle of the paragraph, data generated by Flock cameras is not generally shared with DHS, ICE, or CVF except by warrant. Does that generally indicate that it is shared only with a warrant, or otherwise is it generally may be shared?
We would typically not share data related to, under SB 54, we would be prohibited from sharing data with the federal government for immigration-related purposes. There are exceptions. Obviously, if an individual is accused or has been serving time for violent crime, and the Department of Homeland Security wants to receive that person, we are obligated under SB 54 to cooperate in those instances. But it's restricted to very few instances as far as the state of California is concerned.
And then speaking of the cooperation, there are certain times when ICE will request that the local law enforcement agencies cooperate with ICE detainers. Just want clarity, that's not something that our agency does, and that's when they would ask the local police department to hold somebody for 48 hours.
And probably the chief can respond to that better than I can, but the general rule is under SB 54, we do not cooperate with requests for detainers.
And then, thank you. Finally, I didn't hear Mayor Dutre's comment about or motion regarding the ice-free zone. Did you address that issue?
Well, I think we go with the staff's recommendation. The recommendation, where is that? Stage on city-owned property. Well, let me ask you a question real fast. Under SB 54, can they stage at the police department?
Under SB 54, no.
I mean, they can't stage in the parking lot of the police department, even though the police department knows nothing about it.
No, as indicated, even if there is a court decision that says
But
that
can they
ice-free
stage-
zones can be established.
Can they stage in our, the parking lot at one of our parks? Excuse me, you're out of, yes,
Okay. Okay.
Ma'am, you know, the city council is now in discussion. Everybody's had a chance to speak on this. I'm sorry. We are now discussing this among the council. So, city, you know, ma'am, if you're not happy, then then maybe it's a good time for you to leave, okay? Thank you. Please allow us to do our job. Thank you. You know what? This is probably a good time for us to take a little break. So let's take a little break. Let's take a little 5-minute break. Thank you. we're back in session. Councilman Mendez?
Just a few
Well,
comments.
I had one more question, I'm sorry,
ahead.
and then I'm done. So I know in speaking with OMSD that they're in communication with the Montclair Police Department. And I just wanted to comment that regardless of what happens tonight, I want to make sure that the city as well, not just through the police department, but the city is in communications with OMSD and the Chaffey Unified School District because, for one, the area that's been referenced today in the south part of Montclair is right next to Montclair Elementary. A lot of the people that live there have little kids that go to Montclair Elementary, and to just think that, we have security on the campus now to make sure that you don't have ICE going through the doors in the middle of the day is a pretty sad thought to think about. But also, I live right next to Montclair High School, and I've seen an unmarked Ram truck sitting for hours with tinted windows in the Montclair High School parking lot. So if you can say that you don't have a problem with ICE staging, how can you say that you have any empathy for the children in our community, the families in our community that are dealing with this? And I, for Brown Act reasons, I can't get really into it, but I would just hope that we have an active communication with OMSD and with the Chaffey Unified. We can do more. We can be more present. Thank you.
And Eddie, you want to respond to that regarding OMSD and Chaffey Montclair High School?
Well, we certainly maintain contact on a variety of different issues with both of the school districts. This is not an area that we've maintained a lot of physical discussion with OMSD in relation to ICE enforcement activities, primarily because when it comes to their campus environment, except for school resource officers, OMSD does not necessarily want us involved in the activities on their campuses. They've not alerted us that they've had concern with ICE activities on their campus. Neither has Chaffey Community High School District shared that concern with us. But that doesn't mean that we can't engage with them, and we certainly will do that now that it's been raised. I will reach out to both of the superintendents to see if there's issues or concerns that they have, and if there is anything that we can assist them with.
I've talked to both Jason at OMSD, the superintendent, and also Matt. And they have a policy that there is no immigration enforcement to take place on campus if ICE or federal officials do show up engaged in enforcement activities. Staff's been trained on how to deal with it. I believe at OMSD, they are to contact the superintendent, and the superintendent will go to the campus and deal with the immigration enforcement officers that are there. So there is a policy in place. I believe the police department, I'm assuming our police department is also somewhat aware of that, of what the policy is if that were to take place. Councilmember Mendez.
Yeah, I just, first off, just wanted to say, for staff did an amazing job on this report and presentation. Would love to see if there was like a bibliography maybe that was done so, we can see where a lot of this info came from. Second, I kind of have a hard time right now approving this type of ordinance just because we haven't even completed our budget process yet. And I just would like to, I don't have a problem with the 25,000 because I think that's a low number right now. And yeah, if find out how many people are actually going to apply for this, talk to Pomona, see where they are. And then something that's not in here either, it doesn't talk about like how much will be available for each person that applies. Is there going to be a limit to that? Is it just whatever's there, and if they need it all, they get it all? So just wondering if there's going to be some type of a limit on that. And then with that, that's just my only comments that I
My
had.
motion, obviously, we'll have a budget session. We can talk about this further, what our budget looks like in the 25,000. I know Mayor Pro Tem Martinez talked about a higher amount. Perhaps the higher amount could be that's available to you. But also remember, this is for all Montclair households. So how the programs we set up, staff will put together a recommendation, come back to us a later date, and how, what the amount of money, funds, or grants will be per household. So all that has to be still worked through as we go through this process. But nevertheless, I see nobody else wants to speak, so we have a motion on the table. Councilmember Rue.
Mr. Mayor, we have a amended motion we need to deal with first.
The amended motion failed.
Okay.
There's no second
And I
amended
have
motion, so
quite a
it's-
number of questions, so.
Okay. Then go ahead. It's yours.
Let me. 20% of our families are at or below the poverty line. Many of them are senior citizens. Gasoline is $6 a gallon, and no, that's not peanuts. Electricity, natural gas, water, sewer, trash, and other utilities are at astronomical rates. Food has gone through the roof. Oh, by the way, we have homeless students at Montclair High School. So my questions become, who is eligible for this fund? Will it be just anybody? What is the criteria for eligibility? Will it be based on income, years in the city, need? You have limited money. Maybe you have somebody who's lived here a year. They need help. They're low income. But what about the person who's lived here 50 years and is low income? Do we have a criteria to determine who gets help? And then who decides? Is it city staff? Is it residents? Is there a panel that reviews and decides? This hasn't been determined yet. I do believe this is a gift of taxpayer money. It's taking taxpayer money and putting it into a foundation. I think the better solution would be to turn around and simply try to raise the money. How do we prioritize? Are they low-income seniors? Again, our Montclair High School students who are homeless. By the way, if you're homeless in the city, we don't take care of you here. We send you to Fontana to a navigation center. What about our disabled homeless veterans? They too need help. What about our low-income seniors who are struggling? What about others that are in need? You may have a family who can't pay their property taxes. They need legal help. Are we going to be able to give that to them? How do we determine that the money goes towards what the recipients say it will? Do we pay the bills for them? Money and ask for a receipt? None of this is thought out yet. What are the administrative costs to the program? Do we know? What about taxation? If we give somebody money, is it taxable? I don't know. Social Security certainly is taxable. Ask any of our seniors who are living just on Social Security. What to happen when the money runs out? What if we don't receive the donations? What do we do when that money runs out? Do we keep replenishing it? You will hear empathy from many people up here about our employees who are struggling and want a raise. How do we give that to them? I think there are an awful lot of unanswered questions with this, and those questions need to be thought out first. Do I see merit in some of the things and some of the recommendations? Yes, I do. I certainly support what Congressmember Torres' legislation is doing. I think it's a step in the right direction. There are other recommendations in here that are certainly noteworthy and things we could work with. But I'm struggling on a financial issue when we have so many people who are in need as it is. The need will simply swamp the amount of money we have. And we have to be able to prioritize who gets it. What about a business that's struggling? They're going to close their doors. That's a lack of a revenue too. So these are questions that I think need to be answered. Thank you.
Councilor Lopez.
By the way, just for purposes of a matter of procedure, I seconded the motion just to get it on the floor for purposes of discussion and also as a courtesy, so that way the assembly, the councilwoman or Mayor Pro Tem can introduce her amendment. I've said this before throughout this whole issue. I have done everything I can in the very limited scope and position that I'm in to try to help individuals that are facing potential deportation and just the fear and anxiety that they face. And I'm going to give you a real life story. There is an individual who's 31, 32 now, a graduate of Montclair High School, was brought to this country from Mexico by his mother and sister and brother when he was 9 years old. He's presently a beneficiary of the DACA program. He works full-time as a server in an adjacent city, and he is afraid of being stopped because even though he has his green card, his DACA card, his work permit, he is afraid that if they expire and he gets stopped, that he could possibly be pulled in, when he's never had not so much as even a parking ticket or a speeding ticket in the years that he's been here. So routed him to get legal assistance and get his paperwork back, and if they're in jeopardy, he wanted to find out where his status was, him and his mom, because his mom's not, she's in a similar situation too, even though they've been here maybe 20 years now, 20 plus years. It's those individuals that I prefer to help because they have demonstrated every effort to use the system that they chose to go through to get in line and to try to qualify for citizenship and their status, and to work here, pay taxes here, etc. But I also do not like to see folks just rounded up and beaten senselessly and needlessly, and that's inappropriate. And that's why I have also given referrals to legal assistance organizations, and I think some might have even been the one, Mr. Wood, that you work for, I'm not sure. I referred one to an organization in San Bernardino. I have some legitimate questions. I wanted to find out the confirmation on the city that rejected their contract from 6 to 1, but I did go in the back and Googled it, and darn it, that lady's not in the room now to hear that. I Googled it and did confirm they did do that from 6 to 1. And here's the issue regarding flock. I am not opposed to flock, okay, now, but I am concerned because I am a big civil liberties guy. I am very leery and upset, and I get a bad taste in my mouth when governments try to collect data, store data, and why the hell do they need that stuff? Right. Period. So if there is legitimate proof that you can show me, I'm willing to listen to it, and you may have me on the issue, okay? This guy that you guys, many of you badmouthed me the past month or two, I'm still willing to hear you guys out and get at least some substance to one of the points you're bringing up. If there is legitimate concern to that, I want to hear it, I want to see it. I want to see the substance. There was a comment made, I believe it was Mr. Torres, and it brought up a question. It's regarding that, I believe, and I'm going to paraphrase the statement, that if we implement these funds and throw in an initial $25,000, $50,000, that you guarantee that there are adequate sources of funding from private sources that will match it, beat it, and surmount the number that was initially put in. That said, why can't they do it privately as it is? Because there's so many limitations and hurdles and hoops that you have to jump through when you involve public and city money. And even there's state regulations put on us on how we spend money, use money, dole out money. It seems the more free of limitations and regulations to do it would be go through the private means, and maybe even creating, because we're basically going to use nonprofits that the city controls. Why not use existing or create new nonprofits to put the money that you allude into those funds that can help them? And I think that'd be much more beneficial. I concur with both my colleagues, Mendez and Rue. You know, we just had on the agenda tonight, earlier tonight, 3 hours ago, we canceled the need for us to build a roundabout on Ramona and Howard. And that's a location where 3 or 4 family members were killed. I mean, they were dismembered from a very high-speed driver. And we've had residents demanding that we fix that problem and install that roundabout for at least 8 years at least. And we can't, we are lacking some of the funds for the run up on the cost for that. So we had to cancel the project and we have to try to seek grant funds for that. And then on Wednesday, we are finally going to discuss the potential implementation of a marijuana ordinance where marijuana businesses that are allowed and are applied and granted licenses to operate, they would have to agree to a certain percentage of their profit be reinvested into the city. And when we first discussed that, we discussed things like the Little League program, our homeless outreach programs, you name it. There was a whole series of Montclair needs that this money would be given to. And this particular issue obviously was not one to be discussed, but I don't like the idea that we're somehow already going to earmark some money and spend it before we even have the ordinance adopted. And we have Little League that has been waiting for so long, and we have many folks and families that are on limited incomes that can't even afford to play Little League. And it's just that doesn't have a good taste in my mouth. And we have seniors. I've tried to bring up a senior discount program for those that can't afford their water and trash and their sewer bills. And I was told we don't have the funds to do that because, one, it's possible giving the discount as a potential giving of public funds, but in addition to that, we don't have the money to offset the shortfall. I just do not see, I'm torn, guys, but if you guys can show me the whole issue regarding and prove to me and with some substance about the flock cameras, I might give that a second look, but I don't think Flock is doing what you're saying. I could be wrong, but show me. Show me. I'm not going to be hard-nosed on that. I'm pretty amenable despite what people may want to portray me as. But that said, I will rest at the moment.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. It's been seconded by Councilmember Lopez. Essentially, the motion again is on pages, I can find the recommendations, excuse me. Is it here? Oops, excuse me. Ed, how many pages here? Okay, pages 183 and 184 of your staff report is the motions, including 2A, which would include all households. Staff will come back to us with some recommendations. We can also discuss funding amounts at the budget process if we want to increase this, depending on what money is, and also to support the legislation by Congresswoman Torres. That's the motion. We'll vote by electronic vote. Okay, that's adopted 3-2. And we will now move on to communications. And at this time, we have City Attorney. City Attorney, go ahead.
No, we have department reports
Marcia
first.
first.
Marcia. Sorry, Marcia. I don't know why I missed Marcia.
That's okay. We wanted to just announce a couple of upcoming events for the community. Our Country Fair Jamboree will be on Saturday, June 13th from 12 to 6 at Alma Hoffman Park. It'll be our 12th annual Montclair Community Fair Jamboree. There'll be live entertainment by Anything for Salinas, which is a Salina tribute band, craft vendors, food trucks, eating contests, games, carnival rides, a petting zoo, pony rides, and the splash pad will also be open. You can save $10 per wristband right now by purchasing online during our early bird sale. And the last day to purchase pre-sale wristbands is Thursday, June the 11th. Flyers with more information and a QR code to purchase the pre-sale wristbands is available here at the council chamber entrance. I also want to mention our concert and movie series. The summer fun continues with our 65th annual concerts and movies series, bringing you free entertainment in Alma Hoffman Park every Tuesday from June 16th through August 4th. The city will kick off the series on June 16th with the movie Encanto, and it'll be the sing-along version. And the month of June will also feature live music by Latin Soul Band on June 23rd at 7 p.m. and Queen of Hearts on June 30th, also at 7 p.m. Queen of Hearts will be playing modern and classic country music, and a line dancing instructor will be there to show you all the moves. A few reminders for the park evenings: admission is always free. Everyone's welcome. Remember to bring your blankets, lawn chairs, friends, and family. We'll have free crafts and activities, and the splash pad will also be open for the kids to enjoy, along with food trucks at each concert and movie night. Please check the city's social media for any updates, and if you need further information, feel free to reach out to our Human Services Department. Just a reminder, the flyers are also available here by the council chamber entrance for anyone to take, and that concludes our announcements.
Thank you. City Attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We addressed some of our closed session items in our special meeting earlier tonight. So the items I would be asking the council to meet in closed session would be under B1, there's not 3 cases, there's just one potential case. And then there are no cases under B2. B3 we addressed at the special meeting, all of those pending litigations. And I don't think I'm looking at the updated.
Yeah, it's B4 is, this is the employee discipline, it's number 4.
Okay.
Under
so,
section 54957-B.
So we resolved, we took care of all the closed session other than items that were pulled. So we're left with one potential case under the D2 and then the employee dismissal release matter.
Okay, and just case, let's just add B5, which is the labor negotiations, in case there's any questions on that one as well.
Okay,
that one, if you don't
that's
mind.
fine.
Okay, city manager, I assume you're exhausted from speaking, unless you have something to say?
Word.
Myself, we have appointments to be made to the Community Activities Commission for a 4-year term. I know that Councilmember Rue and Mayor Pro Tem Martinez sat on the interview panel along with one of the CAC members. And there is a recommendation, there's a packet in front of you, if I can find my packet, because, excuse me as I try to find it now. It's over here, nope. That's what happens, 20 documents. You have something for me, Marcia? Thank you very much, I apologize. So the recommendation of the panel is reappointment of Rosa Rangel and Richard Escalante. And the appointment of 2 new members will be Ernest Miller II and Diane Benavides, thank you. And so I will support the recommendation of the panel, and I will make a motion for the appointment of these 4 persons. Got a second by Councilor Rue. Is there, Ben, you have something to say?
I just would like, well, we can call for the vote, and I have a comment.
Let's have the electronic vote. Okay, there it is. I'm assuming that's 5-0. 5-0. Ben?
Yes, I would like for it to be known that longtime members Lori Milheiser and Darlene Ferraro are the 2 members who are not returning, and I'd like for them to be acknowledged at a city council meeting for their long service.
July meeting, I'm assuming. That's
Thank
already
you.
been in the works. And I just, again, want to adjourn this meeting for Lieutenant Jim Michaels. Anybody want to say anything about right under council communication? This is your chance. Hopefully it's short.
Bill? No. Just tomorrow's election day, folks. If you haven't already voted, please do so tomorrow. Polls open at 7 a.m., close at 8 p.m. The voting location, the physical voting location here in the city is at Our Lady of Lourdes Church. But you can also drop off your ballots here at City Hall parking lot or the Montclair PD parking lot. And I would strongly recommend that you do not drop it at the post office tomorrow because of the new postmark rules, but instead drop it at a polling place or drop it off at, like I said, City Hall parking lot or the Montclair Police Department. But with that, just remember those who died defending our right to vote. Let's honor them by casting our vote. Thank you.
How about my left? Anybody on my left want to say something? No? Let's go to closed session.